In the last 5 years, I went from working in a warehouse to earning six figures in tech without a degree. And for the last 3 years, I've been documenting and sharing all of the lessons I've learned along the way. And this video is going to be a compilation of my best and most effective videos to help you learn to code and become a remote software engineer earning a good salary in the current market. It's a long video, I know, but if you go through it all, you'll walk away with 5 years of the most important lessons I have to offer. And I'm giving it to you completely for free. So let's get started. So for the first module, we need to break some of your limiting beliefs and some of your fears. What's happening with software engineering? Is it too late to get into coding because of what's happening with AI and everything like that? And ultimately, how much money can you still make in tech as someone who is new or just trying to get into it? And while everyone else is out there panicking, in this module, you're going to learn the truth. Let's dive in. In the next 12 months, one of two things is going to happen. Either you're going to position yourself on the right side of the biggest shift in the job market in decades, or you're going to watch your current career get eaten alive by AI and wonder why you didn't do something sooner. Because here's the uncomfortable truth that nobody wants to say out loud. AI isn't coming for your job someday. It's literally doing it right now. Customer service roles, accounting, law firms, marketing, administrative work, entire categories of work that people have built 20, 30-year careers around are being automated today. But here's the part that changes everything. While AI is replacing one group of people, it's making another group of people more valuable than ever. And in this video, I'm going to show you exactly which side you want to be on, why coding and software development is the single best move you can make in 2026, and what you need to get there before it's too late. If you don't know who I am, hey, my name is Ayman. I went from working in a warehouse to landing an $80,000 junior developer role without a degree. I've interviewed at top tech companies like Canva, and I've received dozens of six-figure job opportunities throughout my career. And I've also helped dozens of my students learn to code and transition into high-paying coding jobs. Let's get into it. So let's start by talking about what AI is actually doing to the job market right now. AI is genuinely replacing jobs, and that's not hype. That's not like a distant prediction. No, this is happening in real time today. The World Economic Forum projects that AI could displace more than 85 million jobs by 2030. And we're already seeing it. Banks are replacing entry-level analysts with AI. Law firms are automating document review. Marketing agencies are cutting their copywriting teams and using AI tools. Call centers are replacing their workers with AI that can handle thousands of conversations at once. And the jobs that are always at most risk are the ones that have one thing in common. They're repetitive, they're predictable, and they are rule-based. So what that means is if your job involves you mindlessly doing the same tasks pretty much every single day, AI can learn that pattern. And when it does, it can do your job faster than you, more efficiently than you, and not to mention, it doesn't need paid time off. This is the reality of where we are right now. And the question isn't whether AI is going to affect your career. It's whether you're going to let it happen to you, or are you going to get ahead of it? Now let's talk about why developers are on the right side of this shift. So here's what most people completely miss about the AI revolution. Every single AI tool was built by software developers. Every automation replacing a human job, a developer built that. Every single AI product being launched right now, there's a team of developers behind the scenes, building the interfaces, connecting the systems, making things work. So AI is not replacing developers, it's creating more demand than there has ever been before. Think about it this way. Every single company that wants to automate their operations using AI needs someone who can build and implement those systems. Every startup building an AI product needs a development team. Hell, every business trying to stay competitive in this day and age needs software built. And the developers who understand how to build and integrate with AI, who can create these tools and products that everyone else is going to use, are the developers who are absolutely cashing in on this AI boom. And these are going to be the most valuable people in the workforce for the next couple decades. The US Bureau of Labor Statistics predicts a 26% increase in software development workers in the next decade. 26%. And that is during the AI boom, right? And not despite it, but because of it. AI has made the software pie even bigger. And the developers who get in now are going to eat well for a very, very long time. Now, real quick, before I move on to my next point, if you're watching this and thinking, okay, I want in, how do I actually get started? Click the first link in the description to apply to join my one-on-one coding bootcamp. It's where I help career changers land 70 to 100K roles in the next few months, guaranteed. Okay, now back to it. So let's talk about why right now is the best time for you to make a move. Because I know what some of you are thinking. Maybe I'll look into this next year. I'll look into this when things settle down. I'm not sure if it's the right time. And let me be direct with you. The people who are going to be in the best position in 2027 and 2028 are the people who started learning in 2026. Because guys, software development takes time to learn. Learning the skills, building the portfolio, getting job ready. That's a process. Even if you've got the best roadmap in the world, the best guidance in the world, and you're absolutely ruthlessly consistent, is going to take a few months. And not even to mention, if you don't have the right roadmap, if you don't have guidance, this could take you, 12 months, 18 months, 2 years. So every single month that you wait is basically another month further behind you'll be when the job market opens up. And the job that you're in now, the longer you stay in a field that is likely to be disrupted by AI without building a way out, the smaller your window gets. And guys, this is not meant to scare you or anything like that. This is to be real with you. The opportunity to transition into tech has never been more accessible than today. The resources are better. The tools for learning are better. Even AI itself makes learning to code faster than it has ever been before. So the path in has never been shorter, but the urgency to actually take action now has never been higher. Now, for all my beginners and career changers out there, I'm not going to make you learn some complex field like AI engineering or machine learning from scratch as your first introduction into the tech industry. Those paths are not beginner friendly at all. They take years to learn and they require like advanced degree level knowledge for you to even land your first role in the industry. But what I am going to tell you is this: the fastest and most reliable way for you as a beginner and a career changer to get into tech in 2026 and really tap into this AI boom is front-end web development. And I'm not just going to tell you this and expect you to believe me. I'm going to explain exactly why. So number one, front-end development is the most junior-friendly field in all of tech. And the reason for this is companies are a lot more willing to hire junior developers on the front end because the risk and the things that you'll be working on involve a lot less security concerns. There's a lot less things that could go wrong. So, logically, companies are just more happy or more okay bringing on someone who doesn't have previous experience because there's not as much that could go wrong. Two, the learning path is clear and structured. So there's a proven path to get into front-end development from scratch: HTML, CSS, JavaScript, React, Next.js, TypeScript. The path is very logical. Each skill builds on each other. No complex mathematics, no crazy degree background required. You can go from beginner to job ready in 6 months. So most university curriculums focus on teaching their students back-end development. Think Python, think Java. That's what most of these computer science students are learning. And this actually leaves a lack of talent for front-end developers in the market because, there's no CS grads wanting to go into it. And this is where our self-taughts can come in and really take advantage of that. And fourthly, and most importantly, front-end development is perfectly positioned to take advantage of this AI boom. So the fastest growing area of tech right now is AI-powered web applications. I think everyone knows this. And the people who are building the interfaces of those web applications, the people who are building the dashboards, the people who are building the user-facing stuff that actually makes these AI products usable to the general public. Who do you think they are? Front-end developers, all right? So what most people don't realize is that to take advantage of the AI boom, it doesn't mean that you have to be the person building the AI model. You don't have to be the AI researcher. You don't have to be the machine learning expert. You just need to be in a position where you're building products that work with these AI models and make them accessible to the public. And that is a front-end job. So getting into front-end development isn't just getting into tech, right? You're putting yourself at the intersection of the two fastest growing fields in our modern day and age: software development and AI. This is the most valuable place to be in 2026 and beyond. All right, so now let's talk about what you actually need to do. So what even is the roadmap to get into front-end development in this AI age? And let me just give you an honest, direct version of what that looks like. Before we dive into any AI technologies, you need to learn the fundamentals of software development, right? You can't run before you walk. So we're going to start by learning the basics: HTML and CSS. So this is what we use to structure and design websites. Just a few weeks of consistent work and you'll already be building real web pages. And then after that, we're going to dive into JavaScript, the most popular programming language in the world right now. This is what we're going to use to actually bring our websites to life. And it's pretty much the most important part of front-end development. And this should take you maybe 1 or 2 months to get the basics down. And then after that, you've got React. So this is basically going to make working with HTML, CSS, and JavaScript together very, very easy, a lot more manageable. And since React is built on top of these technologies, right, it's a natural progression. Learning React should be fairly easy it should take you maybe 6 weeks to 8 weeks. And these timelines are all assuming that you have a solid roadmap and solid guidance and you're actually consistent, by the way. And now once you've learned these fundamentals, HTML, CSS, JavaScript, React, that is when it's time to dive into some more advanced technologies. So that's going to be TypeScript, Next.js, Tailwind CSS. Again, these newer, more modern technologies are always changing, so you have to be on top of it. But again, they're usually all built on top of the fundamentals anyways, so they should be fairly easy to learn. Just a quick crash course on YouTube, just a quick tutorial, and you should be straight. And then it's at this point, once you've got the fundamentals down, you've got some of the modern tools down, that you want to start playing around with AI and figuring out how to build AI features in your app. So what does that even mean? All right, well, start playing around with the different AI models out there. All right, GPT, Claude, right, Grok, right? Work with their APIs, right? Read the documentation, figure out how to implement AI features in your applications using them. And better yet, what you can do to build on those skills, to understand AI more, is start building AI software solutions for people that you know, right? Reach out to local businesses in your area, start brainstorming, think about how you can utilize AI, right? And how you can build software solutions with AI features to solve people's problems in real life, whether that's your own problems, whether that's friends, whether that's family, whether that's local businesses in your area. You want to get some real commercial projects utilizing AI under your belt, and that's going to put you in a position to where, while everyone else is waiting to see what happens with AI, you're building the skill set that makes you irreplaceable to every company trying to navigate it. So let's wrap up this video. One, AI is reshaping the job market right now, right? Not 10 years from now, right now. And jobs are being replaced. If you're working a white collar job, that's boring, that's repetitive, that anyone could do, you need to be figuring out what your next move is. Number three, the people who are thriving are the people who are building the products and the software that power this new world that we're in. Number four, developers are not on the wrong side of this battle. They're on the winning side of this battle. The demand for software developers is growing every single year. Every tool replacing a human job out there is being built by a developer. And finally, front-end development as a beginner and a career changer is your best shot in. And it's your direct path into an AI future-proof job that has you riding the wave, not fighting against it. All right, that's all for today's video. I hope you guys enjoyed. If you want to see more videos like this, make sure to drop a like and subscribe to the channel, and let me know in the comments down below what your thoughts are on what I said in this video. If you want a full training on everything you need to know to go from an absolute beginner to your first coding job, watch the video that's about to pop up on the screen now. And if you want one-on-one coaching to land your first coding job in the next 3 to 6 months guaranteed, apply to join my coding bootcamp with the first link in the description. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Okay, now you understand that AI has not killed software development. It's arguably made it even more in demand. Now we need to break down and figure out what fields of tech you should actually be learning and trying to get into in 2026. And more importantly, which you should be staying clear from. So let's dive in. Today, we're ranking every major field in tech from the absolute worst to the best for anyone trying to break in with no experience in 2026. And I am going to be brutally honest, because the field that you pick is the single most important decision that you will make on this entire journey. Pick the wrong one and you can waste years of your life with absolutely nothing to show for it. I know, because I've seen it happen. I've had students come to me after spending 3 years trying to get into the wrong field. So that's 3 years of courses, 3 years of boot camp, 3 years of projects, 3 years of applying, and getting absolutely nothing. But when we switch them over to the right field, 6 months later, they've landed a 6-figure job. So same person, same work ethic, but a completely different field and a completely different outcome. If you don't know who I am, hey, my name is Ayman. I went from working in a warehouse to landing an $80,000 software engineering job with 0 experience and no degree. And since then, I've helped dozens of career changers learn to code and land 60 to 100K coding jobs in as little as 4 months. Here's exactly how I'm going to rank these fields, because I'm not just going to go off of the salary numbers. I'll be ranking these fields on 3 things that actually matter when you're starting from 0. How hard are they to learn from scratch? How hard is it to land your first job without experience? How hard is it to land your first job with no experience? And how quickly can you realistically make it happen? That's the only framework that matters. So let's get into it. But just a quick one before we continue. If you want my personal help mapping out exactly how to break into tech and land a 60 to 100K coding role in the next 3 to 6 months, click the first link in the description to apply to join my one-on-one coding bootcamp. All right, now back to the tier list. So we're going to start at the very bottom of the list here. And this one might surprise people, but I'm going to have to put blockchain and Web3 development in the D tier. Look, don't get me wrong, Web3 definitely had its moment. NFTs, cryptos, everyone was talking about it at one point in time. But here's the reality in 2026. The Web3 job market has gone down massively, and the companies that were hiring aggressively in 2021 and 2022 have either shut down, downsized, or have quietly just gone back to traditional development. And as of right now, the demand for Web3 specific roles is genuinely tiny compared to every other field on this list. On top of that, the technology is also super niche, meaning that the learning resources are pretty patchy and not as high quality as you would get compared to the other more established fields that we have here on this list. And not to mention that most of the Web3 concepts you're going to be learning require you to have a solid foundation in traditional programming and development before they can even make sense to you. So all in all, chasing Web3 as your entry point into tech in 2026 is kind of like tracing a trend that has already peaked or that has already passed. So for those reasons, I'm gonna have to put this in the D tier. Again, it's a shrinking market, it's a super niche skill, and honestly just not a viable entry point for beginners. Now, next up is IT/help desk, and this is gonna be an unpopular opinion, and I know I'm gonna get some comments for this, but I'm gonna have to put this in the D tier. So I'm putting IT and help desk in D tier for a completely different reason to Web3. Unlike blockchain and Web3, IT and help desk is actually one of the most accessible fields for beginners on this entire list. It has a low barrier to entry, the certifications and the roadmaps are beginner friendly, and you can get started relatively quickly in this field. But the biggest problem is the pay ceiling. That's what kills it. You see, the reason why most people get into tech is because they're looking to earn a higher salary and get all the benefits that come with working in tech, like working remotely and working on exciting things every single day. But most help desk roles only usually pay around 30 to 40K per year, maybe 50 on the high end. So that basically rules out this field for anyone who is not willing to or unable to take a pay cut. And honestly, the low starting salary would be fine if there was a way for you to progress and level up. But the path from IT support to a well-paying role is a slow, multi-year grind that's going to require you to pivot into a different field anyways. And if your goal is to transition into tech, start working remote and land a 60, 70, 80, 90K six-figure role, there is a lot more efficient ways for you to get there, and IT/help desk is definitely not the right path. So for that reason, I'm gonna have to put help desk in the D tier. It's accessible, it's easy to get into for beginners, but it just doesn't go anywhere fast. Now, next up is cybersecurity, and I know this is going to make a lot of people mad, but I'm going to have to put this in the D tier. And the reason why I'm putting cybersecurity in the D tier is for the literal opposite reason to IT. The income ceiling here is great, right? It's amazing. Cybersecurity pays super well, and the demand is genuinely super high, but the problem is the floor and the barrier to entry is absolutely brutal. I'd arguably say cybersecurity might literally be the hardest field to get into as a beginner. To even get started, you already need to have a solid foundation in networking, operating systems, and just all of the general IT concepts before you can even touch a single security concept. And then when you get to the job market, most entry-level cybersecurity roles still ask for a CompTIA Security Plus, CEH, and 2 to 3 years of experience, or a bachelor's or master's degree. So for a career changer who's starting from scratch, we're realistically talking 24 plus months before you're even competitive. And for those reasons, I'm gonna have to put cybersecurity in the D tier for beginners. Again, super high income ceiling, super high demand, but just an absolutely brutal floor, a brutal barrier to entry for beginners that just makes it not worth it. Now, next is QA/software testing, and this is actually going to get a C. And here's my honest take on it. Now, QA testing is more accessible than most other fields out there. I'll give it that. The barrier to entry is lower. There is clear certifications that you have to get. There's a clear roadmap you have to follow, and you can break into the field without necessarily having deep coding knowledge. But there are two problems. The first is the salary range for a QA engineer. Especially at the junior level, it is much, much lower than most other engineering roles out there. You're typically looking at around 40 to 60K to start. And second, and this is the one that matters the most, and the reason why I can't put this any higher, is QA is one of the fields that is feeling the most pressure from AI right now. Automated testing tools are advancing super fast, and a lot of the manual QA work that people have been doing is getting absorbed by automation. Now, don't get me wrong, it's definitely not dead, but it's not the growth trajectory that you want to be riding in 2026. So again, for those reasons, I can't put software testing any higher than a C tier. It's got the accessible entry, it's easy to get into for beginners, but the lower income ceiling is going to be a problem for a lot of people, as well as the increasing AI pressures. Now, next up is going to be data science / data engineering. And this is going to have to go in the C tier. And I think I'm even being generous here. The reason I say this is data science and data engineering are one of the most heavily gate-kept fields in all of tech. They have the highest barrier to entry for beginners. The majority of data science roles, even the junior ones, expect a background in statistics, mathematics, or computer science. And when I say a background, I mean a bachelor's degree or a master's minimum. You need to know Python, SQL, machine learning frameworks, data visualization tools. These are some super advanced concepts that you don't just learn in a few months, right? They're better taught over a multi-year degree. And once you go from data science to data engineering, it gets even worse. You're dealing with pipelines, cloud infrastructure, distributed systems. And if that sounds like a bunch of jargon to you, it's because it is. It's very deeply complex, back-end heavy work. I've literally seen career changers spend 6 to 12 months grinding data science content on YouTube and going through boot camps, only to hit the job market and find out that the doors are basically closed for you if you don't have an academic background. And that's why you see so many people trying to get into data science or trying to get into data engineering. They're going back to school. They're going to get a master's degree. So for that reason, I cannot put this any higher than the C tier. Great salary ceiling. There's a lot of demand in the field, but it's nearly impossible to break into this field as a beginner if you don't have some sort of degree. Now, next up is going to be UI/UX design, and this is also going to get a C tier, and here's why. Look, on the surface, I know it looks attractive. You're designing apps and websites, you don't have to code, and tools like Figma seem like they're pretty beginner friendly. But the job market for UI/UX designers is actually pretty competitive and becoming increasingly oversaturated. And that's because everyone is having the same idea as you. They're saying, I'll get into tech through design so I don't have to write any code. And the problem is with UI/UX design is that the barrier to entry is almost too low. So obviously we want a low barrier to entry. We want it to be possible for beginners to get in. But when the barrier to entry is too low, then that is when you start to deal with oversaturation. So the result of that is there's way more junior designers looking for roles on the market than there are actual roles available in the market. So the result of that is there's way more junior designers looking for jobs than there actually are roles available on the market. And on top of that, the salary floor for entry-level designers is a lot lower than most engineering roles, so the salary is not going to be impressive. And in today's day and age, companies are increasingly wanting more designers who can at least read and understand code. So in my opinion, UI design is a solid skill to have alongside some sort of traditional development or programming skill. But as a standalone entry point into the field, the market has gotten tough and it's not as good as an entry point as it used to be. So for that reason, I'm gonna have to put UI design in the C tier. It's got that low barrier to entry, but since there's no technical aspect to it, the barrier to entry is almost too low, which is what has led to the junior market becoming oversaturated, and increasingly it's become more difficult for juniors to find their first designer role. Now, next is going to be cloud computing / DevOps, and this is going to get a B tier. And the reason why this gets a B is because the fundamentals here are genuinely valuable and the market is actually strong. AWS, Azure, GCP, cloud skills are in demand right now, without a doubt, and they pay well. But the problem with it is the learning path. DevOps and cloud engineering requires you to understand Linux, networking, infrastructure as code, CI/CD pipelines, containerization with Docker and Kubernetes, and all of this complex stuff. And that's before you even get into the cloud platforms themselves. It's a lot, right? And most of these concepts genuinely do not make sense until you have some existing software development experience or some previous experience building applications that you can sort of tie them to. And to add on to that, junior cloud and DevOps roles also still tend to favor people who have already worked in software development in some capacity. So it's a strong field, the demand is there, but it's just not the right starting point for beginners. So again, for that reason, I'm gonna have to put this in the D tier. Like I said, strong market, great pay, but if you're a career changer who's just starting out, it's not really beginner accessible as an entry point. Cloud and DevOps is more so the kind of field that you pivot into after you've already worked in the tech industry for a couple years and you're looking to sort of level up and, try something new. But if you try to get into this from scratch, you're going to have a very, very difficult time. Now, next is going to be mobile app development. So iOS apps, Android apps, and this is also going to go into the B tier. So mobile development is going to get a B for a similar reason. So just like cloud and DevOps, the demand is real, right? The demand in the market is there. Mobile apps are not going anywhere, and Swift for iOS and Kotlin for Android are well documented languages with really strong communities. But here is the issue for career changers. The junior mobile developer market is significantly smaller than the junior web developer market. You see, most companies building mobile apps either have very, very small teams or they outsource. So entry-level mobile development roles are genuinely harder to find and harder to come by than entry-level web roles. And there's also a huge fork in the road problem, right? Do you go with iOS? Do you go with Android? Choosing one or the other cuts your already limited job opportunities in half. Now, there is technologies like React Native, which allow you to build both Android and iOS apps together. But in order to learn React Native, you need to learn React first, which brings you straight back to web development anyways. So for that reason, I'm gonna have to put mobile development in the D tier. It's a legitimate field. There is demand for it out there, but it has a much narrower job market and a harder entry point for beginners. Now, next we have AI/machine learning engineering. And I bet you guys were waiting for this one because everyone wants to talk about AI right now. And, fair enough, the space is exploding. But AI and machine learning is not an entry-level field. The people getting hired to build AI systems have a deep background in mathematics, statistics, and traditional software engineering. These are senior roles being filled by experienced engineers who are pivoting into AI, not career changers who are starting from scratch. Now, what is actually accessible on the AI side is learning how to integrate AI into existing applications, right? But that is actually a front end and a full stack skill, not a machine learning skill. So adding AI features to applications using tools like the OpenAI API, that's something that becomes accessible when you become a front-end developer or a full-stack developer. And that's how beginners can work with and take advantage of AI in 2026. But becoming an AI engineer from scratch without any background, in 2026, that path just doesn't exist for beginners. So for that reason, I'm gonna have to put this in D tier. It's an incredible field, but you need to have experience first. And surprisingly enough, front-end development and full-stack development is your fastest path into doing AI adjacent work. Now, next up is full stack development, and this is going to get a B tier, believe it or not. So this opinion is going to frustrate a lot of people, but let me tell you why. Let me explain. So full stack is a great destination, but it's the wrong starting point for career changes. That's what people don't realize. Because here's what full stack development actually requires. You need HTML, CSS, JavaScript, React, a backend language like Node.js or Python, SQL and NoSQL databases, server management, API design, authentication, and deployment infrastructure. That is not a 6-month curriculum. I don't care what anyone online tells you. That is not something that you can learn in 6 months, right? That is a 2 to 3 year curriculum for someone who's starting from scratch. And to add salt to the wound, companies almost never hire junior full stack developers or backend developers for that matter with no commercial experience. And the reason for that is the backend is where the business logic lives. That is where the database lives. That is where all of the sensitive information lies. And one mistake on the backend can break everything. I mean, if you just go online and you search for Meta or Google data leaks, you can see hundreds and thousands of and millions of people information being leaked because someone didn't build the backend correctly. So no company is ever going to gamble on letting someone work on their backend if they don't have previous experience in the field. And I've seen this time and time again, right? One of my students, Roberto, came to me after trying to get into backend development and full stack development for 3 years of courses, 3 years of projects, not because he wasn't good enough, but because the field makes it almost impossible to get your foot in the door if you don't have any previous experience. So again, for that reason, I have to put it into D tier. Like I said, it's an amazing destination to get to, high pay, high salary, all of the benefits of working in tech that you would want, but it's an absolutely terrible starting point because it's going to take you 2-3 years to learn. And by the time you finish learning all the skills, you're going to get slapped in the face when you find out that no company is hiring anyone who doesn't have previous experience. Now, the final field we have here is front end development, and this is going to go in the S tier, guys. This is not even close. And let me run it through the same 3 criteria. So first, how hard is it to learn? Front end has the most logical, beginner-friendly learning progression of any field on this list. HTML and CSS first, the structure and the design of websites, and it's a very visual learning experience, right? Which makes it very, very accessible from day one. And then after that, you learn JavaScript, the most documented, well-resourced, most community-supported programming language in the world. And then after that, you learn React. Again, the most in-demand, documented, community-supported front-end framework in the world. And that's the core stack, clean, structured, nothing overwhelming. And that is achievable in months, not years. Now, the next criteria, how hard is it to get your first job with no experience? Well, companies are far more willing to hire junior front-end developers than juniors in any other field. And let me explain why. Here is what companies are thinking. The front end is what users see. It matters and it's important. But a junior making a mistake on the front end is not going to take down the databases. It's not going to collapse the entire infrastructure. So the risk of hiring inexperienced talent is lowest on the front end. So what does that mean? That means more doors, more opportunities, and more chances to get your foot in. And finally, the third criteria is how quickly can you get there? Well, let me show you some real numbers. One of my students, Roberto, went from working as a pharmacy assistant to landing his first 6-figure front-end developer role in just 6 months of learning. My student Daniel went from working as a truck driver / bricklayer to landing his first front-end role with a salary of $90K per year in just 9 months. My student Salman went from working in healthcare to landing a remote developer job in just 4 months, and then transitioned to a high-paying role paying $80K per year, all in the span of just 9 months. You see, this is what happens when career changers stop fighting the wrong battle. They stop trying to get into the wrong field and they start playing the right game where the odds are actually in their favor. And here's the thing that most people miss, right? Choosing front end doesn't mean you're locked into front end forever. Front end is just the door. And once you're inside of the tech industry, once you have real commercial experience on your resume, you can then go anywhere. You can transition into full stack, backend, cloud, mobile, AI integrated development. So remember what I said about AI. The fastest way to start working on AI related products as a career changer is to become a front-end developer who can integrate with AI APIs. So front-end isn't just the easiest entry point. It's the entry point that teaches you the skills and gives you the experience necessary to open up every other door in the tech industry. And that is why front-end development, and you can ask any senior engineer, any lead engineer, any principal engineer, that is who I learned this from. And they will tell you that front-end is what is called the gateway drug of software development. Not only because it allows you to land your first job in the field and start earning a decent salary and build up that commercial experience required, but it also equips you with the necessary skills, the technical foundation, the programming foundation to then pivot into other fields without any problem. So front-end development is going to get an S tier. It's got the best learning curve, the most junior-friendly hiring market, and it is the fastest path to 6 figures. It's not even a debate. So here is the final tier list. The answer has always been front-end for beginners, and the mistake that most career changers make is they pick the field that sounds most impressive, right? Instead of the one that's actually going to get them hired the fastest. Don't be Roberto who learned back end for 3 years and didn't see any result, when you could be the Roberto who switched to front end and landed his first job in 6 months. That's all for today's video. I hope you guys enjoyed. If you want to see more breakdowns like this, make sure to drop a like and subscribe to the channel. If you want a full guide on everything you need to know to learn to code and land your first coding job, make sure to watch the video that's about to pop up somewhere on the screen now. Or if you're ready to skip the noise and put yourself on the fast track, you can click the first link in the description and apply to work one-on-one with me, and we will map out exactly how to get you from where you are right now to a 60 to 100K front-end role in the next 3 to 6 months guaranteed. I hope you guys enjoyed, and I'll see you in the next one. Okay, so now you know a little bit about the different fields of tech, and most importantly, that front-end web development is your best bet at getting into the field as a beginner or career changer. Now let's break down a full roadmap of all the skills you need to learn to actually get hired as a junior front-end web developer. Let's dive in. If you're trying to break into web development right now, you've probably run into this problem. One person tells you to start with Python. Another one says start with JavaScript. The next person says you should learn with a bootcamp. And then the next person says that bootcamps are a scam and that you should only learn with free courses. Everyone has an opinion. No one agrees on anything. And you're sitting there with no idea what you're supposed to do to actually get started, or whether the path you're on is even the right one. And I've been there, and I've seen hundreds of career changes waste months, sometimes years, going in circles because no one gave them a straight answer. So this video is going to fix that. No fluff, no filler, just an exact step-by-step path on what actually gets career changes hired as web developers in 2026. Hey, I'm Ayman. I went from working in a warehouse to landing an $80,000 developer job with no degree or any previous experience. I've interviewed at top tech companies like Canva and have received dozens of six-figure job opportunities. And I've also helped dozens of career changers learn to code and land high-paying coding jobs in just a few months. Let's get into it. But just a quick one before we dive in. If you want my personal help executing this roadmap and landing a 60 to 100K front-end role in the next few months guaranteed, click the first link to apply to join my one-on-one coding bootcamp. Okay, now back to it. So before the roadmap, I need to explain why most people fail before they even get started. It comes down to one thing. They pick the wrong field or the wrong technology to learn from the jump, and they either spend months or years learning something that is either extremely difficult and hard to learn for beginners, or even if they do manage to get through it, they've learned something that is basically closed off to beginners who don't have any previous experience. So think data science, full stack, back-end development, cybersecurity, cloud engineering. These fields are either too hard for beginners to learn from scratch, or even if you learn them from scratch, companies just won't hire beginners in them. And I've talked about this in a ton of my other videos. Now, web development, in particular front-end web development, is different. It has the clearest path, the lowest barrier to entry, and the most open job market for beginners and career changers who are just starting out. That's why front-end web development is known as the gateway drug of the tech industry. I've spoken to so many senior engineers and CEOs, and they all agree on the same thing. Front-end development is the best intro to a tech career out of every field out there. So that is what the entire roadmap that I'm going to show you today is built around and going to teach you. And here's how it breaks down. Phase 1 is going to be HTML and CSS. This is where everyone starts. And HTML is basically the bones of every website you've ever visited. It defines what's actually going to be on our page. So the headings, the buttons, the images, the text, the paragraphs. And then CSS is what makes it look good. So it's how we take that content and how we add the colors, the fonts, the spacings, and the different alignments and lay things out uniquely. And these two go hand in hand, right? You can't learn them separately. You have to learn them at the same time. By the end of this phase, here's what you need to be able to do. You need to be able to build a whole web page from scratch. So a real page with a navigation bar, all these different sections, and then a footer. Not a basic one paragraph HTML file. You also need to make it work on any screen size. So phone, laptop, tablet. This is what we call responsive design, and it's one of the most important parts of HTML and CSS. You also need to understand Flexbox. This is the main tool that you're going to be using in CSS to lay out and align your pages. And if you don't understand Flexbox, everything else in your journey is going to be so much more difficult. Here are the key things to cover in HTML. Basic tags, text, links, images, forms, and semantic elements. Now the key things to cover in CSS, the box model, positioning, flexbox, fonts, colors, transition, and responsive design. Now, one quick tip I want to give you for this phase is you don't want to just sit back and watch tutorials. Every time you finish watching something, I want you to pause the video. I want you to remove all the code that you just wrote and try and write it from scratch from memory. That's what's actually going to make the concept stick. Now, phase 2 is JavaScript, and this is where the real work is actually going to begin. So JavaScript is the programming language of the web. So it's basically what allows us to actually make our websites interactive. So the buttons that work when you go on a website, the forms that actually load when you submit them, the real-time data that we see on a website, that is all possible because of JavaScript. So if HTML and CSS are like the bones, the skin, and the body of a website, JavaScript is the brain and like the nervous system. And I'm going to be straight with you, JavaScript is going to be a lot more difficult than HTML and CSS. And there's going to be times where you get stuck, you get stumped, and things are just not making sense. That's normal, just push through it. Now, here's what you need to learn in this phase: variables and data types. So this is how we store information in JavaScript. Conditionals and loops. So this is how our code makes decisions and repeats things. Functions, all right? So this is reusable blocks of code. This is at the core of everything, one of the most important concepts. Arrays and objects. So this is how we group and organize data in JavaScript. The DOM, right? So the document object model. I think that's the correct name for it. So this is how you're going to use JavaScript to actually change things on your web page. And finally, async JavaScript and APIs. So this is how our code is actually going to grab some real-time data from a different part of the internet and actually display that real-time data on our application. Now, for every single concept in this phase, I want you to use something called the 3X framework. This is the best way to learn anything programming, I promise you. So step 1, watch a crash course for the topic. And the point here isn't to remember every detail, it's just to take notes and kind of get an idea of how everything works. And then step 2, code along with 2 to 3 tutorial projects. And then step 3, finish by building one solo project to apply everything that you learned on your own and make sure that you actually understand it and internalize it. Do this for every major concept in this phase, and by the end of it, you will have a better understanding of JavaScript than 99% of other self-taught developers. And that's when you can move to phase 3, React. So once your JavaScript is solid, React is next up. And React is basically just a tool that makes building big, complex web applications with HTML, CSS, and JavaScript easier. That's the simplest way to explain it. And it's one of the most in-demand front-end skills right now, and massive companies all over the world like Meta, Netflix, Google, Amazon all utilize React in their code bases, and not just them, but thousands of other smaller companies out there as well. Now, one thing you need to understand is React is built on top of JavaScript. It's not a replacement for it. So what that means is if your JavaScript is shaky, React is going to feel impossible and you're really going to struggle. So that's why you need to make sure that your phase 2, that your JavaScript is strong before you move into this. Now, here are the concepts you want to cover with React. Components. So this is one of the main features of React, where we break down our app into small, reusable parts. And understanding how components work and how they talk to each other is very, very important. Props, all right? So this is how we pass information from one component to another. State and hooks. So this is how React manages data that is constantly changing. Event handlers. So this is how React handles a user on the website doing something like submitting a form or clicking a button or any sort of action. Routing. So this is how we build an app with multiple different pages. And then API integration. So you already learned how to use APIs with JavaScript. Now you got to learn the best way to do that with React. Now, to learn these important concepts, I want you to, again, use the 3X framework. And for your tutorial projects in this phase, I highly recommend you look for ones that use Firebase alongside React. So Firebase basically lets you add a ton of back-end development features to your applications, like logging in and databases and all of these cool features without you actually having to learn back-end development. So this allows you as a front-end developer to build full stack apps and build apps that are so much more impressive, again, without having to waste time or months or years of your life learning back-end development, which is going to be a very, very useful skill under our belt to have. Now, phase 4 is Git and GitHub. So this is going to be a short phase, a short detour, but don't skip it. Git is basically a tool that allows us to track all of the changes in our projects and allows us to save our projects in case something goes wrong. We don't lose all our progress. And then GitHub is a place where we can upload those saved versions of our project so that other people online can see them and we can all collaborate and work together on that project. And every single developer on a real team working in a real company uses Git and GitHub every single day. So if you don't know them, you'll look like a complete beginner when you go into your interviews or actually join a real company. Now, the good news is it's pretty easy to learn Git and GitHub. All you have to do is find a couple of short courses for them and just spend around 1 to 2 weeks learning the basics, creating a project, saving the progress of that project, pushing that project onto GitHub. And then from this point forward, in order to keep building your skill, you'll use Git and GitHub in every single project that you build. And this is also going to build your GitHub profile up over time, which is going to come in very handy when you go out and apply for jobs. Now, phase 5, advanced technologies. So at this point, you now know HTML, CSS, JavaScript, React, and getting GitHub. These have been the fundamentals of front-end web development for decades now, and they are not going anywhere. But in order to really stand out, this phase right here is what's going to separate you from the rest of the juniors out there. So here's what you need to learn. Number 1, TypeScript. So TypeScript is a stricter version of JavaScript, and this is what most serious companies use, right? So knowing this tells employers that you're not just a beginner, you're someone who actually knows what they're doing. Next.js, again, built on top of React, and it's what most serious companies use when they want to build real production level web applications in 2026. The good news is if you know React, you pretty much already know Next.js. You just need to get a little bit of practice with it. Tailwind CSS. So this is a tool that allows you to write CSS and style your apps a lot more quickly. And again, if you know normal CSS well, Tailwind CSS is a walk in the park. Next is Redux. So this is a way to manage data in our applications when things start to get a little more complex, and it's not always needed, but companies expect you to know it. Next is Stripe. So Stripe allows you to add payment functionalities into your application. So this is how you're actually going to start making money from your app. This skill is more valuable than most beginners realize, and it's going to make you much more of an asset to companies. And it's at this point that you also want to start dabbling in AI tools like Copilot or Claude Code or Cursor, right? To speed up your workflow and allow you to build projects more quickly. Now notice I'm only suggesting you use these AI tools now that you've already learned everything, right? You have no place using these AI tools until you've learned the fundamentals. So here's my rule. No AI until you already know how to do what AI is helping you do. So for example, if you're learning JavaScript and you don't know how to use JavaScript, then you have no place using AI to help you write JavaScript. But by this stage, it's expected that you already know how to code, and this is when you can supercharge your results with AI. And that's when AI becomes a tool, not a crutch. Now, the approach to learning all of these technologies that I walked through is going to be different to the earlier phases. We're not going to use the 3X framework. You're already past that. Right? What we're going to do is we're going to watch a short tutorial on each of these technologies and how they work. And then instead of building a separate project for each of them, we're then going to just build one massive project to combine them all. And we're really swinging for a home run with this project. This is going to be our main portfolio piece. This is going to be the one we lead with when we're applying for jobs. So you want to put as much effort into it as possible. Make it look like a real product, not a tutorial app. So again, AI integrated features, right? The most cutting edge technologies. Build something that actually solves a real problem and put so much time and attention to detail into it that you'd actually be proud to show it to someone else. Now, if you need inspiration for some good portfolio projects, I highly recommend you check out the projects that people are building on websites like producthunt.com, or you can check out winning hackathon projects from top universities like Harvard or MIT. Again, you want something that could pass as a real startup, not a tutorial project. Now, phase 6 is going to be the interview prep. So now you have everything that you need technically. The last step before you start applying is making sure that you can actually get through the interviews. And front-end interviews usually have 3 key stages. The first is going to be the phone call. So this is when you first apply to a job and a recruiter or a hiring manager is going to reach out to you, ask you some questions about yourself, who you are, what you do, why you want to work for this company, and also test your technical knowledge very briefly. Now, how do we prepare? Well, the first thing you want to do is you want to research the company, all right? So go online, go on their website, their LinkedIn, their social media, and learn about what they do, what they're currently working on, what their core values are, so that when they throw all of these basic questions at you, like, why do you want to work for us? You actually have something to talk about. Now, two, to prepare for the technical questions they throw at you, you basically just want to cram front-end trivia questions. So go online, go on Google, search for front-end interview trivia questions, and literally memorize as many questions or answers to questions as you can, because a lot of this information is going to be completely useless and you'll never use it in your life. But in order to pass these interviews, the unfortunate reality is you just have to cram. Just like you're going to school and you're passing some useless exam and you have to cram all these useless formulas in your head, you got to do the same thing for the phone call interview. Now, the next stage is going to be the coding challenge. So for smaller, more local companies, even mid-sized companies that are within your city, which is usually going to be where you're going to be landing your first job. You won't be landing your first job at Google or Meta or anything like that. The coding interview is almost always going to be a practical take-home project. So something like build a small app that pulls from this API and then this displays the data on the page. And now, what is the best way to prepare for this? Well, just keep building. The best way to get good at these is just to have built a lot of projects in the past. So the more projects you ship, the more you improve your skills, the less scary and easier these projects will be. Now, the third stage is going to be the chat interview. So this is when you've already proven that you know what you're doing. You've already passed the technical interview, and now they just want to make sure that you're a good culture fit. So they're going to bring you in, ask you a few questions about your past experiences, why you've chosen to learn to code, why should they pick you. And the best way to prepare for this is to just have a few answers ready in your head. So go online, search for common behavioral interview questions that pop up, not just in coding, but in pretty much every single interview out there. You know, like, why should we choose you? What can you bring to the table, to this company? What are your past experiences? And you don't need to script anything, but just sort of think through your answers beforehand and how you will answer them so that you don't have to come up with them on the spot. Now, phase 7 is job application. And here is the part that most people skip. And it's the most important part. The skills will get you ready, but they're not going to get you hired on their own. What gets you hired is how you apply. So most people finish learning, they get their portfolio up, and they start firing applications online, you know, just spamming easy and quick applies on LinkedIn and Indeed and hoping for the best. But eventually they give up and they decide that the market is broken. But the market isn't broken. Their approach is. Here's what actually works. Step 1, make a list of around 20 local digital agencies and software companies near you. So within your city or within your wherever you live. Find out who makes the hiring decisions, all right? The CEOs, the CTOs, the hiring managers. And then what you want to do is you want to basically reach out to these people and get in touch with them directly. Depending on your situation, it's going to vary the approach that you take. For most people, what I'd recommend you do is literally print out your resume, go in person into the company, hand them your resume, tell them you've been looking at local tech companies in your area and you came across them, you really admire what they do, and you'd love to learn and, you know, work for them. For other people, this may not be possible. So that's where alternatives come in, like emailing them instead, right? Or shooting them a message on LinkedIn or giving the company a phone call. And you basically want to say the same thing, right? You came across the company, you're researching companies in your area, you came across them, they seemed really interesting and you'd love to learn and work from them. Now, whatever way you choose to get in touch with the company, the fact is nobody does this, and that's why it works. Now, at the same time, while you're doing this direct outreach sort of strategy, what you also want to do to diversify your application strategy and improve your odds of getting hired is to also spam easy and quick applies on LinkedIn and Indeed. So if you want to get the best results, I'd recommend doing around 30 also easy applies on LinkedIn, Indeed, ZipRecruiter, all of these job platforms per day, and then also doing some direct outreach. But these are going to be the heavy hitters, the direct outreach, and it's what's going to put you in a category of your own. All right, to summarize, here is the full path one more time. Phase 1, HTML and CSS. Phase 2, JavaScript. Phase 3, React. Phase 4, Git and GitHub. Phase 5, advanced technology. Phase 6, interview prep. And then phase 7, job application. 24 weeks, No degree needed, just the right path done consistently. And if you follow this step by step, there's no chance that you don't land your first junior developer job. All right, that's all for today's video. I hope you enjoyed. If you want to see more videos like this, make sure to drop a like and subscribe to the channel. And let me know down in the comments below if you want to see more no fluff, straightforward videos like this. If you want a full in-depth course on everything you need to know to go from absolute beginner, career changer to landing your first coding job, watch the free course that's about to pop up somewhere on the screen now. And if you want one-on-one coaching from myself to land your first coding job in the next 3 to 6 months guaranteed, apply to join my one-on-one coding bootcamp with the first link in the description. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Okay, so now we have a solid learning strategy in place. So learning the tech skills is not going to be a problem. But now, once we actually know the tech skills, what projects should we be building and putting on our portfolios to actually get hired? Well, in this next module, I'm going to walk you through 3 key projects that you need to be building that'll pretty much guarantee that you get hired. So let's get started. Let me guess, you've been learning to code for months. You're watching tutorials, finishing courses, taking notes, but you feel like you're barely moving. Meanwhile, you see people online saying that they went from 0 to job ready in 6 months, and you're thinking, how? Like, what are they doing that I'm not doing? And I'm going to tell you exactly what it is. Because after going from working in a warehouse to landing an $80,000 junior developer job without a degree or any tech background, and also helping dozens of career changers learn to code and do the same, I've figured out the specific things that make some people learn coding in months while other people spend years going nowhere. And it comes down to one simple mistake that almost everyone makes. If you don't already know who I am, hey, my name is Ayman, and let's get straight into it. So let's start by talking about the mistake that kills most people's progress. And here's the trap that most beginners fall into. They consume and consume and consume tutorial after tutorial, course after course, video after video, and they feel productive, right? They're learning new things every day. Their notebooks are filling up and their bookmark folders are a disaster. But when they sit down to actually build something, they freeze. Because watching someone else code is not the same as actually writing code yourself. And this is the mistake. Spending the majority of your time taking in information instead of applying it. I call it tutorial overload. Your brain has a limit on how much new information it can actually take in and hold onto at any time. So when you keep watching videos and learning new concepts on top of concepts that you haven't even applied yet, none of it sticks. It feels like learning, but it isn't. Real learning happens when you use the information, when you struggle with it, when you get stuck, figure it out and move forward. And that struggle, that's not a sign that you're doing anything wrong. That's the actual process of learning. It's meant to feel difficult. The people who learn to code the fastest aren't the people who are watching the most tutorials. They're not the people that consume the most. They're the people who actually push themselves and apply it the most. Now, here is the fix to the problem. The 3X framework. This is the learning approach that actually works. I use it with every single student that I work with, and it's the exact system that I use to learn to code myself. And here's how it works. For every technology or programming language you want to learn, you want to follow these 3 exact steps. Step 1, watch a crash course. So you're going to watch 1 crash course of your choice on the topic. Not 5, not 7, not 10, just 1. And the goal here is not to memorize everything. It's just to get a surface level understanding of the basic theory and kind of just get a basic feel for how everything works. And while you're watching the crash course, code along. Don't just sit back and watch. Have your code editor open and type everything out as you go. This alone is going to make things stick so much better than just passively watching a video. Now, what you also want to do is take notes in your own words. So not just copy from the screen. Write the notes in a way that you would explain it to your friend or your cousin or your brother. And if something in the video doesn't make sense, rewind, watch it again. Right? The goal here isn't for you to speed through the video as quickly as possible. It's for you to actually understand what you're learning, however long that takes. So that's step 1, just 1 crash course. And then after this, it's time to stop consuming and start building. So step 2 is going to be 3 guided tutorial projects. So what you want to do is find 3 project tutorials that use the concept you just learned and code along with them. And this is where the theory you learned actually starts to become a skill. You're seeing how the concepts you've learned are used to actually build something real, how they all connect to each other, how a real developer actually thinks through a problem. And here's a couple things you want to do during the guided project that most people skip. First, don't just follow along passively. Once you've coded along with a section once, pause the video, remove all the code, and try and build it on your own from scratch. Even if you get it wrong, and especially if you get it wrong, you're gonna learn so much more than you would just passively coding along with a video. Number two, once you're in your second or third guided project, what I'd actually recommend you do is start pausing the video and coding ahead. This is what's gonna force your brain to apply what it's learned and actually develop your ability to build projects and slowly start to build that ability to write code on your own. Now, finally, after you've watched the crash course and you've built 3 guided projects, now the final step is a solo project. So at this stage, there's going to be no tutorial, no guidance, just a blank file and yourself. This is the most important step for learning, but it's the one that most people skip because it's so uncomfortable. So here's what you're going to do. You're going to pick a project idea, right? And you can use ChatGPT to help you get some inspiration. Tell it exactly what topic you've learned, and then tell it to give you a real world project idea that tests what you would actually use it for on the job. And then you want to take the project idea that ChatGPT spits out and build it on your own. And you will get stuck. And that is the point, because getting stuck forces you to problem solve, to read documentation, to actually think. And thinking is actually what's going to build the deep understanding and problem solving ability that companies are looking for in interviews. And if you can complete the solo project, you can now confidently say that you genuinely understand whatever technology you are learning and you're ready to move on to the next. And if you can't, well, that's okay, right? That's useful information. Go back, see what went wrong, and fill in the gaps and go at it again. And that's pretty much it. Crash course, 3 guided projects, and then solo project. Repeat this 3-step strategy for every single technology on your roadmap. Now, just quickly before we move on to the next section of this video, if you want help executing this roadmap and getting job ready in the next 3 to 6 months guaranteed, apply to join my one-on-one coding bootcamp with the first link in the description. It's why I help career changers like yourself land 70 to 100K roles in the next couple months guaranteed. The first link in the description will have all of the details, but without further ado, let's get straight back to the video. Okay, so now we know how to learn. Let's talk about what to actually learn as a beginner, because the learning framework only works if we learn the right things in the right sequence. So here's exactly what to learn in order to take you from an absolute beginner to job ready ASAP. You're going to start with HTML and CSS first. So this is how we build the structure and design of our websites, and you want to learn these two at the same time. To learn these, what do? We apply the 3X framework, and by the end of learning HTML and CSS, you want to be able to confidently build a fully responsive web page from top to bottom. Next is going to be JavaScript. So this will be your first real programming language where you'll be learning about logic, about problem solving. And this phase is going to take a little bit longer, probably about 6 to 8 weeks of real work, but don't rush it. Just be patient and apply the 3X framework, because your JavaScript foundation is what everything is going to be built upon. After that, you'll then learn React. So this is the most in-demand front-end framework in the world right now, and it's built on top of JavaScript, which is why it's so important to have a solid understanding of JavaScript before you learn it. And obviously, again, you'll learn this using the 3X framework. And then after that, you'll learn Git and GitHub. This one will be a little bit different, just 1 week, 1 crash course, and start using it in all your projects. And then finally, after that, you want to learn the advanced stack. So that's TypeScript, Next.js, Tailwind CSS, Redux. These are what real companies use in their code bases. So once you've got the foundations down, you want to layer these on top. That's the sequence for beginners and career changers. Don't skip ahead. Don't go sideways and learn other things like Python or backend or machine learning or data science. The reason why most people take years is not because coding is hard. It's because they keep consuming too much. They keep getting, what do they call it? I think it's golden object syndrome or shiny object syndrome, where they jump to one thing and they jump to the next and they jump to the next. One day it's Python, the next it's Java, the next it's machine learning. They're just jumping around, consuming too much, and they can never commit to one path. Follow this path, apply the 3X framework to each technology, and you'll be surprised how much you will stand out at the end, because people these days cannot just stick to one thing. They just scatterbrained all over the place. Now, before we wrap up this video, I just want to teach you one more thing, right? And that's the one thing that separates the fast learners from everyone else. And it's the thing that most people don't talk about, because fast learners are not necessarily smarter than anyone else. They're not working more hours. They're just spending more time in what I like to call the uncomfortable zone. So the uncomfortable zone is when you're building a project without anyone to hold your hand. It's when you hit a bug and you have to figure it out by yourself. It's when your code doesn't work and you don't know why yet. And most people avoid that zone and they just retreat to another tutorial the moment things get difficult. But that zone, that's where the skill actually is built. And the more time you spend there, the faster you grow. So the practical takeaway is this: in order to learn as quickly as possible, you constantly want to be pushing your skills out of your comfort zone as much as you can. Now, I'm not saying you need to push it to the point where you're feeling completely lost and completely stuck and you just feel stupid. No, just push it 1% slowly out of that comfort zone every single day, slowly fixing new bugs, slowly becoming more independent. And stay in that Goldilocks zone where you are pushing yourself and getting out of your comfort zone, but you're not burning yourself out. And this ability to constantly push out of your comfort zone and learn new skills and build that problem-solving ability is what separates people who are getting hired in 6 months and the people who are still watching tutorials 2 years later. All right, that's all for today's video. I hope you guys enjoyed. If you want to see more videos like this, make sure to drop a like and subscribe to the channel. And let me know down in the comments below what your thoughts are on today's video. If you want a full training on everything you need to know to go from an absolute beginner to your first tech job, watch the free training that's about to pop up on the screen now. And if you want one-on-one coaching to land your first coding job in the next 3 to 6 months guaranteed, apply to join my one-on-one coding bootcamp with the first link in the description. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Okay, now we have some solid tech skills. We've got some solid projects under our belt. Now the final thing that we need to do is just package all of these skills up, build up our resume, our LinkedIn, our GitHub, so on and so forth, and actually start applying for jobs. And in order to help you do that, this next module is going to be a full course I created on how to actually build your application material and the best way to apply for jobs. So let's dive in. All right, welcome to the second module of the free course. In this one, we are going to start getting into the actual nitty gritty value of the free course. And the first thing we are going to talk about is how to build a killer resume. So in this module, we'll cover everything you need to know on how to build a developer resume that actually gets you hired with absolutely no previous work experience. So without further ado, let's jump straight in. So to begin this module, I want to start with a big picture overview of all of the main components that a junior developer resume should have. So every single junior developer resume should include these 5 key sections. The first is going to be your header, then your experience section, your project section, your education section, and then your skills section. It's extremely important that you have every single one of these components on point. So let's actually dive into the details of how we can build out each of these parts of your resume and get them looking beautiful, starting with the header section. So the header section is probably the most straightforward part of your resume. Pretty much all you have to do is include your full name, your location, your number, your email, your portfolio website link, and then you want to add links to your LinkedIn and GitHub. Now, one thing that is extremely important to note is you want to make sure that you are using a custom domain for your portfolio website link and your email. So for example, firstnamelastname.com and me@firstnamelastname.com. So to make that easier to understand, since my name is Ayman Musa, I'd make sure my portfolio website link would be aymanmusa.com, and then my custom email would be me@aymanmusa.com. And since nobody else is doing this, this is going to set you apart from all of the other candidates who are applying for the same job as you, because it just shows a level of professionalism and shows that you're actually very serious about this whole tech career and not just some random person who picked up a couple technical skills and is trying their shot at a job. And this is just one of those small 1% things that you slowly add over time. 1%, 1%, 1%. That really add up and pay dividends in the long run. Now, the best part about these custom domains is they are extremely easy to set up. All you have to do is go to GoDaddy or Namecheap to buy your custom domain, and then go to Google Suite or even just go back to GoDaddy to set up your custom email. And again, if you're still a bit confused, there's 1,000,001 tutorials online that'll walk you through exactly how to set it up. So yeah, if you do get confused, just go on YouTube. There's more than enough resources to walk you through all this. All right, so the next section we're going to talk about is going to be the experience section. This is the part of the resume that trips up most beginners, because what the hell do you even put on the experience section of your resume if you don't have any experience, right? Well, listen up, because what I'm about to tell you is crucial to understand. What you need to realize is you need work experience to get work experience. That is honestly just the harsh reality of the tech job market. A simple bootcamp certificate or university degree or certification is no longer enough. Companies are literally drowning in applications, and they can afford to be picky, and they are. And your application will literally go straight to the trash if you don't have any experience. I'm not joking. And more specifically, and I want you to write this down, if you want to see decent success when applying for internships, you need at least 6 months of experience. And if you want to see decent success when applying for junior roles, we're talking 12 months minimum. I know it sounds insane, but this is literally what I'm seeing in the market every single day. Now you're thinking, okay, this makes sense, but how the hell do I get experience on my resume if I need experience to get experience? And I get where you're coming from, but the only way to break this cycle, if you can call it that, is to create your own experience. But what do I mean when I say that? Well, there's actually several ways that you can go about this. And the first is becoming a freelance developer. So for this strategy, what you will do is literally approach absolutely everybody that you know. So this is going to be family, friends, mutuals, local businesses in your area, and offer to build them a website for 100% free. It honestly doesn't even have to be a website. It can be any sort of application that they need. And at the same time, what you're going to do is go on Google Maps and look for local businesses that don't have a website and make them the same offer of building them a website for free. Now, once you do this for 1 to 2 weeks, I promise you that you're going to know at least one person who needs a website. For me, when I personally did this, within the first 1 to 2 weeks, I found 2 people who needed a website. One of them was a friend of mine who was a trader, and I just built him a portfolio website. And then the second one, which I think is the main reason why I actually got hired in my first developer job, was another friend of mine, but he owned a local car detailing business. So what I actually did for him is I built out his whole website from scratch. And I also implemented an appointment booking system so that people could book in car detailing appointments. And then what that allowed me to do is take that experience and then say I was a freelance developer on my resume. And in the dot points of that experience, I could talk about all of the features that I built out for this car detailing business. And the best thing is, this experience is completely legit. So when I eventually did start landing interviews with this experience on my resume, when I was questioned about it, I was actually able to talk about real features and real stuff that I did. And even when I got to the final stages of the interview process and they were asking me for background checks and references, again, everything was completely legit. So I was able to reach out to the guy who I built the car detailing website for. I was able to get him to speak with the company that was trying to hire me. And they were like, yep, they had a chat. Everything looked good. And then I got my first offer for 80K per year. So this strategy right here is the main reason I was able to break into tech. Now, the next strategy you can do to create your own experience is start your own web development agency. So for this one, this is going to be a little bit different than the freelance developer strategy, but still kind of similar. What you're going to do is you're going to do the same thing of approaching everybody you know and then offering to build them websites for free. But then what you're going to do is actually create a company. So you create a website for it, a LinkedIn page for it, a social media page for it, make it look like an actual real legit company. And then in the portfolio section of the agency website or the company website, you can list out the projects that you built for the 2-3 people that needed a website out of all the people that you asked, and you can list them as clients on your agency website. And then when you have that agency website built, the company looks legit, you've got a portfolio of like 2 or 3 websites that you built for your friends, your family, your neighbor, then you can put that down as experience on your resume. So you can say that you were a web developer at X, Y, and Z agency, and then in the experience dot points, you can just talk about the websites that you built for your friends, again, family or neighbor, whoever you built the websites for. And again, the best part about this experience is it is completely completely legit. So the company asks you about the experience. You can say, it's my own web development agency, but I worked with real clients. Here's the reference to this guy. Here's the reference to that guy. And then everything is going to check out and work just fine. Now, the next strategy is actually launching your own side project or startup. So this one is going to take a little more time investment, but what you're going to do is basically just dedicate 2 to 3 months to building a very large side project or startup. And then once you've built out this startup and you make it look completely real, and I mean professional looking landing page, LinkedIn pages, social media pages, you want the website to be ranking on Google, you want the UI of your startup to look super professional and modern. What you can then do is then say on your resume as experience that you were the founding software engineer at X, Y, and Z startup. And again, the best part about this experience is it is completely legit. So if a company brings you in for an interview, they ask about this experience, you can literally say, yeah, I was the founding software engineer at the X, Y, and Z startup. You talk about all the features that you implemented in this side project or startup that you built, and bang, that is a completely legitimate experience. And now the final strategy that I have listed on here to get past the experience paradox, as I like to call it, is actually completing what I call virtual internships. So if you go online, if you go on Google and you search for coding virtual internships, you're going to see that there's a ton of companies that pop up who are literally giving out virtual internship programs online that are completely free and accessible to anyone. And the best part about these virtual internships is there are some big name companies that are offering these. EA Games, JP Morgan Chase, like massive companies. And literally all you have to do is register to the virtual internship. You're going to receive 4 or 5 tasks that you have to go out and build. And then once you've completed the virtual internship, you're going to get a certificate. And then at that point, what you can do is then say you were a software engineering or web development intern at wherever you did the virtual internship program at. So if you did, for example, the EA Games virtual internship, web development intern at EA Games, and then in the dot points, you can literally just talk about all the tasks that you were assigned and completed as part of that virtual internship. And then when you get an interview and they ask about this experience, you can again talk about all the tasks that you completed as part of the virtual internship. You can show them the certificate. And if they really try and dig deeper into this experience, you can tell them that, hey, it was an online virtual internship program that I participated in. And again, you're not lying at all. This is a completely legitimate experience. Now, there's just a few ways you can get around the experience trap, but there's honestly so much more ways you can get around this. You've just got to get super creative. Now, is it fair that you have to do all of this just to land an entry-level job? No, but unfortunately, that's the game that we're playing. So if you want to get hired and stand out, I'm telling you, you have to be using these strategies to get that 6 to 12 months of minimum experience. Now, the next section that we are going to walk through is the projects section. And this is another section that most beginners absolutely fumble. You see, what you need to realize is the point of the project section is to provide real evidence of your ability to work as a developer in a commercial environment. So this means that in your project section, you don't want to have the same easy, basic projects that everyone else has. So for example, a to-do app, a calculator app, a weather app, a Netflix clone. These projects are absolutely horrible to have on your resume because for one, they're extremely simple and easy to build out, so they don't even prove any of your technical skill. They're extremely saturated projects that everyone else has, so you're not going to stand out at all. And they serve no real purpose and have no real users, so the company has no confidence in your ability to actually work on projects that are used by real customers. So for example, a really good project you could put on your resume is a freelance project that you built for a real company, or that you even built for a friend or a family member, or again, your neighbor. It could be a startup side project, just a quick project that you build, that you deploy, and then you manage to grow that to 100 real users. A Chrome extension. So let's say you build a nice little Chrome extension tool, you deploy it to the Google Chrome store, and bang, it blows up and it manages to get to 500 plus downloads. The thing that all of these projects have in common is that they actually show your ability to solve real problems for real people using software development and actually build applications that have real utility, that are actually useful to real people. That's what your projects need to show. Now, to get inspiration for some solid project ideas to put on your resume, what I recommend you do is go to this website called producthunt.com. It's a place where people come to share their different side projects and startups that they're working on at the moment. And just scrolling through here will prove to you how simple a lot of the startups people are building actually are. You don't have to build something super complex. It could be a habit tracker for busy parents, a procrastination tool, or like an alarm for university students who
who procrastinate a lot. Something very, very simple that just has utility and actually could be useful to a real person. Or if you want to build something more complex, then you can check out winning hackathon projects from top universities like Harvard or MIT, and that'll give you a bunch of cool project ideas that you can build out. Now, getting towards the end of the resume is the education section. Now, this section can be a bit of a difficult one, especially for us career changers and transitioners, the people who don't have degrees. But how you choose to handle this situation is really going to vary depending on your situation. If you're someone who does have a computer science or some sort of IT or tech degree, what you want to do is you want to move your education section to the very top of your resume, just below the header. And obviously in that section, you want to include your degree alongside any additional training that you may have completed, i.e. any boot camps, courses, certifications. You want to include any relevant coursework or achievements that you completed or took part in as part of your degree. For example, let's say you were the president of the computer science club, or you were a teaching assistant to 10 plus students. And the final thing you want to do is make sure that you do not include the graduation date of your degree if you're currently studying or if you completed this degree a long time ago. And the reason we do this is if you studied your degree a long time ago, but you don't have any tech work experience, then companies will be hesitant to bring you on because they're concerned about whether your skills will be outdated or not. But if you're currently studying a tech degree, companies will also be hesitant to hire and bring you on due to concerns about your ability to work full time. So basically, just having the graduation date on your degree doesn't serve you at all in any way, shape, or form. The best thing to do is pretty much just leave it out and let it be discussed during the interview. Now, with all of these changes implemented, your education section should look something like this. Now, if you're someone who doesn't have a computer science or related degree, what you want to do is you want to keep the education section right below the project section, so towards the bottom of your resume. And the trick is we're going to include the Harvard CS50 as our education, alongside any additional training, boot camps, courses, certifications that we have also done. So if you don't know what the Harvard CS50 is, it's essentially a free introduction to computer science class that Harvard has put online directly from their college curriculum. And you can literally just go online, take that introduction to computer science class, and then put it on your resume as education. I believe you can also even get a certificate of completion, but I'm pretty sure that's paid, so there's no point. But either way, certificate or not, having this education on your resume is going to boost your rankings because now it has that Harvard keyword on it. And with all these changes implemented, your education section should now look something like this. Now on to the final section of your resume, which is going to be the skills section. So this one is probably the most simple part of the resume and the most difficult to mess up. The goal here is essentially just to list out all of these skills and technologies that you have worked with in the past, even if you aren't that comfortable with them or have only used them once or twice, and also list out any skills that you don't currently know right now, but you're sure that you could learn pretty quickly because it's similar to some other technologies that you're working with already. And the goal here is basically just to stuff every relevant keyword into your resume to make sure that you pass the initial screenings. Because when a recruiter is not technical, a lot of the filtering is done by keywords on your resume. And if your resume doesn't include certain keywords, even if you have the best experience in the world, since the recruiter is not technical, it will just throw out your resume because it doesn't include certain keywords. So in order to make sure that doesn't happen to you, we just got to stuff all the possible skills that we can into your resume. And that, my friends, is how you build a resume that's going to get you hired in the harsh tech job market. If you implement all of the advice that I walked through in this video, I promise you this resume will get you 10 times more interviews and obviously job offers. So with that being said, let's move on to the next module. Yo, what's going on, guys? Welcome to the third module of the free job search course. In this video, we're going to break down how to build a portfolio that actually gets you hired as a junior developer. So let us jump straight into the video. In today's competitive tech market, honestly, a strong portfolio isn't a nice to have, it's literally essential. It's one of the first things that employees look at when you go to apply for a job, and it can literally make or break your chances of landing that junior developer role. But the unfortunate truth is most junior developers have no clue how to build a solid portfolio. They're showing the wrong kinds of projects, or even worse, a lot of the times they don't even have a portfolio at all. So essentially, the goal of this video is to show you how to create a junior developer portfolio that actually gets you hired, all the way from how to create an insane, beautiful portfolio website with little to no work, which projects to include and which projects to leave out, and the most common mistakes to avoid. By the end of this module, you'll know how to build a portfolio that not only impresses employers, but actually lands you your first coding job. So to begin, building a solid portfolio can be broken down into two very distinct steps. The first is building the actual portfolio website. So figuring out how to build a portfolio website that looks really nice and it grabs the recruiter's attention. And then two, building the portfolio projects. So figuring out how to build projects to display on that portfolio website that will make you stand out from other candidates. We're going to start this video by covering this first point here, and then we'll work our way through to the building of the actual portfolio projects. So building a portfolio website. So if you aren't already aware of what a portfolio website is, it's basically just a website for you to display your projects and your skills to recruiters. So this right here is an example of a portfolio website that I give to all of my students. And as you can see, pretty much just tells the recruiter who you are, what you do, and has all of these different sections about yourself, about your skills, where you show your projects, show your experience, and give the recruiter a way to contact you. Now, the mistake that most beginners make is trying to design and build out their portfolio website on their own. And don't get me wrong, while I respect the hustle, when you're first starting web development, chances are you are going to absolutely suck at web design. And that's how you end up with juniors who build portfolios that look like this. Now, look, I'm not here to disrespect or make fun of anybody, but these portfolios that you are building on your own actually end up doing you more harm than good. And that is because even though the job of a web developer isn't to be good at web design, recruiters and employers will literally judge you based on how good the design of your portfolio website is, even though it has nothing to do with your job at all. So now the question is, what can you do about this? How do you get past this issue? Because we're web developers. If I wanted to get into web design or UI design, I would have went and learned that instead. Well, the good news is I've actually come up with a way to build an insane portfolio website that smashes the rest of your competition while not having to worry about being good or learning all of this new stuff about UI design or web design. So what you're going to do is you're going to head to Google, search for awards portfolio, and click on the first link. And this is going to take you to a website with a list of some of the most beautiful portfolio websites you will ever see. Now, in this list of portfolios, what you're going to do is look for a portfolio that looks really good that shares the source code. So some of the portfolios on the awards list will actually give you all of the source code. So they will allow you to copy it, download it, absolutely no issues at all. So that means that all you have to do is download this source code of this beautiful award-winning portfolio, customize the images, change the text, make it your own, and then now you've got yourself an insane portfolio website with little to no effort. And just to prove to you how easy and no effort this is, I'm literally going to give you a demo of me finding a beautiful portfolio and making it my own in less than 2 minutes. All right, so let's head to Google. Let's search for awards portfolio. Let's click on this first link here. And as you can see, we get a list of some of the most beautiful portfolio websites you will ever see. All right, so I just scrolled through for a bit and I found this portfolio website here. If we open this up and we have a look at it, you can see that this looks absolutely beautiful. Even if you are the most skilled web developer in the world, there's no way you could build this out without having an extensive web design or UI design background. Like, I know developers with 10 years, 20 years of experience who I worked with were absolutely horrible at UI design and could never build a website like this, who couldn't write HTML and CSS to save their lives, but were insanely skilled developers. So we don't want the fact that we're not able to build a website like this, which we, again, as web developers shouldn't have to do, to stop us from getting hired from jobs that we are fully qualified for. So what we can actually do is if we scroll to the very top and we head to this guy's GitHub, if we open up all of the projects that he has shared, you can see that he has publicly made it so that anyone can take the code for this website right here, the one that we were just on, and duplicate it and make it their own. So you can literally see he said here, I've made the code open source for those who'd like to dive in, learn, copy, steal, etc. So you have permission from this guy to literally take this portfolio, change it up, and with little to no effort, have a beautiful, insane portfolio that we can leverage to get you hired as a junior developer. And this is what I mean when I say that working hard is not always going to get you hired. You could work as hard as you want. You could put all this time into building your portfolio website. And someone who is lazier than you, who isn't even putting as much effort as you, could come out of the other end with a better looking portfolio website than you just because they knew this information and you didn't. So just on a quick side note, I want you guys to think of the cost of the information that you don't know. How many tactics like this are other people implementing who are not working harder than you, who are putting in less time than you, but are taking the junior developer jobs that you want just because they know these strategies, they know these tactics, and you don't. Tangent aside, that is how you build a beautiful portfolio website with little to no effort. Most beginner developer portfolios absolutely suck. So I promise you, if you follow these steps to a T, you're going to absolutely kill the competition. I didn't even have to scroll that far to find this portfolio. I probably scrolled for like 5-10 minutes. Bang, found a portfolio that gave me the source code. Now that you have a standout award-winning portfolio website, the next question is, what kind of projects should we actually display on that portfolio website? So we spoke about this before in the resume modules, but I want to really drive this point home again and explain to you the actual reasoning behind why we need to have projects and a portfolio in the first place. And when I teach you this knowledge and you have it in place, this is going to allow you to, instead of just copying random ideas that you find online that the rest of your competition is probably doing too, because you actually understand the underlying reason why we need projects, you can actually come up with your own unique, solid portfolio project ideas. So what you need to understand is companies do not want to hire junior developers. That is literally the truth. And the reason for that is they require a lot of guidance, mentoring, training, etc. in order for them to actually be productive and contribute to a company. They can't work entirely on their own, which means the senior developers need to take time away from their work to actually mentor these juniors. So the point of your projects is to serve as real, solid proof that you can work as a developer in a real world environment, and to show that you can actually start contributing to a company as soon as you join them without being a burden to the team. Or in simple terms, your projects are basically just meant to prove that you can hit the ground running, you're not going to take a ton of mentoring or time from senior developers, and that you're basically skilled enough to hold your own. And the more challenging and difficult the problems you solve in your projects, the more confident the company will be that if they hire you, that you can actually hit the ground running and that they'll get a good return on their investment from you as quickly as possible, hence increasing your chances of getting hired. Now, with this in mind, some projects to avoid. You don't want to build the simple, basic projects like a to-do app, a weather app, a rock, paper, scissors game, a calculator app. These projects do absolutely nothing to prove that you can work as a developer in the real world because they're extremely easy. Everyone's done them. They have real no-world use. The only reason you'd ever build out projects like these is for your own learning. You would never put them on your portfolio. Instead, what you want to focus on doing is building commercial applications that genuinely solve a problem for a real customer. A freelance project for a local business, an iPhone app that you grew to 500 downloads, a Chrome extension that you grew to 30 downloads, a startup that you built that grew to 50 or more users. These types of projects will show your actual ability to create real software solutions to real world challenges that people are facing as a developer, which is pretty much what you're going to be doing on a day-to-day basis on a real job. Because if you think about it, who are the companies? Who are the people that are hiring you? Well, they are people who have built a software, right? An application that solves a problem for real people. And that's why they're making money. And with this money, in order to build this application out and make it even better, they want to hire other developers on their team who also know how to build software that solves real problems for real people. So when you show them that you can do that, they obviously are going to be more likely to hire you because that's exactly what you're going to be doing on the job on a day-to-day basis. So long story short, you just need to focus on building projects that show your ability to build software for real customers. Whether that's freelance projects, whether that's building a team project with your friends that you deploy onto the App Store, just spending a significant amount of time building just 1 to 2 real commercial projects will do more for you in terms of getting you a job than a million to-do apps. And again, if you are short on ideas, I recommend you go and check out hackathon projects from top universities like Harvard or MIT, or get some inspiration from the different side projects and startups that people are building on websites like producthunt.com. If you genuinely take action on everything that I walked through in this module, you will have an insane portfolio that will actually make you massively sought after as a developer. So that being said, congrats on getting through module 3, and let's move on to the next module.
All right, just quickly before we move on to the next section, if you're watching this video and you're thinking this all makes sense, but I wish I had someone to walk me through this process one by one and keep me accountable the whole way. That's exactly what I do with all of of my students in my coding bootcamp, ASAP Frontend. I help beginners from all backgrounds break out of stagnant careers and land 70 to 100K roles in just a few months and guide them every step of the way. So if you're serious about breaking into tech, check out the first link in the description. It'll have all of the details. But without further ado, let's get straight back to the video and move on to the next section.
All right, guys, welcome to the LinkedIn module. Let's dive straight in. LinkedIn is the #1 platform that recruiters and employers use to find and vet candidates. But here's the thing. Most junior developer LinkedIn profiles are absolutely horrible. They're boring, generic, forgettable, and oftentimes doing you more harm than good. You see, what most beginners don't realize is learning all the technical skills is just half the battle of getting that first developer job. Learning how to sell yourself to an employer is just as, if not more important. If you're searching for a job, it's extremely important that you understand what employers actually care about, which is a lot more than just your resume, and knowing what tools they're using on a daily basis to find their candidates. And one big answer to both of those questions is LinkedIn. LinkedIn is a really low-hanging fruit. It's very easy to set up if you already have your resume, but it's one of those small 1% things that when you get right pays off dividends in the long run, or could even get you hired. Take it from someone who has received several six-figure job opportunities through LinkedIn alone, some of which paying almost $200,000 per year. It is worth taking the time to learn about and set up a proper good LinkedIn profile. So in this module, I'm going to break down exactly step by step how to build a LinkedIn profile that not only gets you hired as a junior developer, but also opens the door so that in the future you can receive opportunities like this on a day-to-day basis. So without further ado, let's jump straight in. So we're going to start this module by walking through the basic information. So this is the first massively important aspect of your LinkedIn profile. This is the first thing that anyone sees when they click on your profile. So you want to make sure that you're giving off a good impression. So the key must-haves when it comes to the basic information are 1, a professional headshot, 2, a professional headline, 3, 500 plus connections, and then 4, the professional banner. So for the professional headshot, if it wasn't obvious enough, it's a really bad look on LinkedIn if you don't have a profile picture. Even a mediocre picture is better than no picture at all. Now that being said, you still want to make sure that your picture looks professional as possible, and you don't have to go overboard with this. You don't need to be wearing some kind of fancy suit. Literally, just make sure that your profile picture is a nice headshot of you looking professional in some sort of formal clothing. A simple button-up will do, and you'll literally be good to go. Now, for the professional headline, it's extremely important that you have a headline that paints you as an experienced professional in your field of tech. Those are the candidates that employers and recruiters are looking for on LinkedIn. So this means that your headline shouldn't be something like aspiring web developer seeking opportunities or aspiring software engineer trying to transition into the tech industry. This immediately puts recruiters off and lets them know off the bat that you have no professional experience at all. So why in the world should they hire you? To give yourself the best possible chances of being hired, just set your headline to whatever kind of developer you are trying to be, even if you don't have a job yet. So for example, front-end developer, web developer, etc. Now for the professional banner, this one is probably the most difficult to mess up. There's a ton of different ways that you can approach your LinkedIn banner, but my recommendation is to just find a really nice professional banner of the city that you live in. So just go on Google, search for your city and then LinkedIn banner. And what this is going to do is when recruiters who are based in your city come onto LinkedIn, they click on your profile, they're going to see, oh, okay, this guy's based out in our city, so they know to reach out to you. Now, 500 plus connections. So this one definitely is not as important as the rest of these 3 points here, but having that 500 plus connections on your profile is just going to make your profile look so much more professional. So what I'd suggest you do is connect with 50 random people in your field per day. So for example, if you want to be a web developer, connect with 50 random web developers on LinkedIn per day until you hit that 500 mark. And I know this doesn't seem like a big deal, but again, it's one of those 1% things that we've been talking about throughout this whole course that are going to add up and really make the difference. Next, your contact information. So if a recruiter does think you are a good fit for a role, you want to make it as easy as possible for them to reach out to you. And you can do this by making sure to include your portfolio website and your email inside of your contact information. Again, this is one of those small 1% improvements that slowly add up over time. Now, next is having a professional about section. So the about section is pretty straightforward. Pretty much just start with a brief description description of yourself and what you do. You can pretty much rip this from ChatGPT and then highlight all of the technical skills that you know or are proficient in, and then you finish by including any relevant links, i.e. the link to your portfolio website. Some people choose to write really long-winded LinkedIn descriptions, but honestly my opinion is just to keep it as simple and straightforward as possible to make it easy for the recruiter to get all of the necessary information that they need as quick as possible about your profile. Now, your experience and projects. So this one is going to be very, very simple. All you want to do is just make sure that you're including all your prior experiences and your best portfolio projects in your LinkedIn profile. And as obvious as this might seem, you'd be surprised how many LinkedIn profiles from beginners I see on a daily basis that don't include this basic information. Remember, we want to make it as easy for recruiters and employers who comment our profile to get an idea of who we are as a developer as quickly as possible. And in order to do this, you literally just have to copy and paste all your experiences and your projects from your resume onto your LinkedIn. Extremely simple, nothing fancy. Just copy all the bullet points, the descriptions, the projects straight from your resume onto your LinkedIn, and that's pretty much it. Again, it doesn't seem like a big deal, but it just makes things that much easier for the recruiter, as that little bit less friction in going through your profile, which again is one of those small 1% things which is going to make the difference between whether you get hired or the other candidate gets hired. Now, the skills section. So when recruiters look for candidates for a specific job role, for example, let's say a web developer, they will literally filter out profiles based on the skills you have listed on your account. Now, for this reason, it's extremely important to make sure that you go through and you put down all the technical skills and non-technical skills that you have in this section. This will make sure that you aren't getting ruled out for any roles that you could potentially be the candidate for. So again, let's say you're looking for a web developer role. To make sure you don't get excluded from those roles, you want to make sure you're including HTML, CSS, JavaScript, React. And you can also get endorsements on these skills from your friends and other developers to improve your credibility. Now, a quick bonus tip, a quick secret nugget that a lot of people don't know about is by default on LinkedIn, they're going to give you a profile URL. That's going to be your first name, then your last name, then a bunch of random characters. But if you go to your settings, you'll see that you actually have the ability to customize and set your own custom URL. So what I'd actually do is go to my settings, I'd change it, and I'll choose one that is very simple and minimalistic. Ideally, you want to get it so that your LinkedIn URL is just your first name and last name. And this is just going to add a nice, small professional touch to your profile. Now, again, this alone isn't going to make a major difference between whether you get hired or not, but it's one of those small 1% things that I've been speaking about throughout this entire course that add up and make you look so much more professional. That is pretty much everything that we need to cover in the LinkedIn module. Very simple, very straightforward, very self-explanatory, but if you follow every single piece of advice in this module to a T, I promise you, you will see results and your LinkedIn will become a job magnet. So without further ado, let's move on to the next module. Okay, welcome to module 5 of the job search course, guys. In this one, we are going to cover GitHub and how to build a profile that is actually going to get you hired as a junior developer. So without further ado, let's dive straight in. So in today's tech market, your GitHub is one of the first things that employers look at when you apply for a job. It's no longer just a place for you to store your code anymore. It basically serves as a coding portfolio, a resume, and a chance for you to actually stand out from the crowd and get hired. But here's the problem. Most developers, as with most things that we have covered in this course, go about it completely wrong. They're leaving their GitHub profiles blank. They're super inactive. They have no pinned projects. Overall, their profiles are just nightmares for recruiters to search through, and it's costing them valuable job opportunities. So in this module, my goal is going to be to show you exactly how to create a GitHub portfolio that actually impresses employers. So we'll cover how to actually create a killer profile, which projects to include, and some little known hacks and strategies that people don't really talk about that will allow you to set yourself up and apart from the crowd. So without further ado, let's jump straight in. Now, before we dive into the nitty-gritty gritty tips and advice on how to actually improve your profile. I want to start this video by talking about what recruiters are actually looking for when they come to check out your GitHub profile. So what you need to understand is most recruiters are not technical, which means that they do not know how to code. This means that they're not going to dig really deep into your profile and go into each of your individual projects to figure out what tech you're using. You know, they're not going to look at the code to figure out how good you are. And even if these recruiters were technical and they could code, they just wouldn't have the time to do that with so many different candidates applying for the jobs. So your goal as a developer trying to get hired is to basically just give the person who is viewing your profile the easiest and quickest rundown of what kind of developer you are, the tech that you use, and your level of experience as quickly as possible. If your profile is super difficult to navigate and the recruiter can't find out the information that I just mentioned there in less than 1 to 2 minutes of looking through your profile, they're simply just going to move on to the next candidate and then potentially rule you out for the job. So now that you understand our goal as a developer is to basically just make our profiles as simple for recruiters to sift through as possible. Now the question is, okay, how do we go about achieving that? And that's what I actually want to dive into now. So let's run through all of the parts of your GitHub profile that you need to dial in, basically just to make the recruiter's job as easy as possible and ensure that you have the highest chances of being picked and obviously landing the job. Starting with the basic information. So this is the first part of your GitHub profile that any recruiter is going to see. And the goal of this first section is basically just to serve as a nice professional description of yourself and what kind of developer you are. So the same typical advice you'll see for any other platform also applies to GitHub. So you want to make sure you have a nice professional profile picture. And of course, you don't want to go overboard with this. You don't need to be wearing some sort of 3-piece tuxedo, but just make sure you're wearing something nice, formal, and professional, i.e. like a button-up or a plain white shirt, a plain black shirt. And what you also want to do in your basic information is make sure to include links to other methods of contact. So this is going to be your portfolio website, links to your LinkedIn, your email, etc., to make it as easy as possible for the recruiter to get in contact with you. But one piece of your profile that is unique to GitHub is going to be your README. So that's this section right here. And this section right here is unique to GitHub and basically allows you to go overboard and really customize the way your profile looks and make it pop, which of course is going to help you stand out from the boring, mundane GitHub profiles that the rest of your competition has. But the question is, how do you actually create these crazy visually appealing READMEs? Well, typically there would honestly be a lot of work and coding and styling that you would have to do to achieve this look. But nowadays there are literally online README profile generators that will allow you to create these insane looking profiles in under 30 seconds. So they'll literally do all of the work for you. All you have to do is just change the name, change some of the information, and bang, you have yourself a beautiful looking README you can just directly add to your GitHub profile. To find these generators, literally all you have to do is go to Google, search for GitHub README generator, and you'll find a ton of websites that will do all of the dirty work for you. Now, no matter which of these generators you choose, you still need to go in and edit it and make sure that your README profile answers these 3 questions. Who are you? What kind of developer are you? And what specific tech do you use? So for example, you can see that the README here answers all 3 of those questions. We obviously have the role that we're working in or the role that we're looking for, and we get more specific with that throughout the paragraph. And then obviously we have all of the tech that we work with. And the next really significant part is going to be your pinned projects. So recruiters will search through your pinned projects to answer these 3 questions. Do your projects use the tech that is inside of the job specification that they have been provided? If so, how often are you using these technologies and how long have you been using them? So for that reason, you want to make sure to pin 4 to 5 of your best pinned projects that are relevant to the jobs that you are applying for. So for example, if you're applying for web development jobs, you obviously want to include pinned projects that include web development technologies. And for each and every single one of your pinned projects, you want to make sure you include a simple README just like this one, so that when the recruiter clicks into it, they can see photos of your project, they can see the technologies that you used and the features that you implemented, and then they also have instructions on how to set up the project on their own device in case they're technical and they want to have a look at the project live. This is going to save the recruiter a ton of time having to sift through code, and it's going to give them a better idea of your your capabilities as a developer in a shorter amount of time, which obviously then increases your chances of getting picked and moving on to the next stages of the recruitment process. Now, your GitHub contribution graph. So this part of your GitHub profile is definitely not as important as everything else that we have covered up until now. But with that being said, some recruiters will use your contribution graph as an indicator of your level of experience, especially if you don't have a long professional track record. So in other words, if you are a developer who's looking to land that first job, making sure that your GitHub contribution graph is covered in green, just like the example here, will serve you very well. Now, in order to achieve this, you want to make sure that when you're building projects, you're making commits and pushing to GitHub very often at literally every small checkpoint and milestone that you can, rather than just making one big commit at the end of a project. But if you want to fast track this process of getting a nice contribution graph, there is literally tons of websites out there that will let you hack your contribution graph and make it look however you want without having to do all of the hard work of committing 900 times over a year. You literally just go into these websites, you select how you want your contribution graph to look, and then bang, it's going to go ahead and change it for you. Now, this might feel a bit unethical, and you can do with this information what you will, but personally, if I was a developer trying to land my first job in the industry, I'd be using every single advantage that I could get my hands on. And that, my friends, is pretty much everything you need to know to create a stellar GitHub profile. As you can tell, it's a very simple process, but if you follow all of these steps in this video to a T, I can guarantee you will significantly increase your chances of getting hired. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next. Okay guys, welcome to module 6 of the job search course. In this one, we are going to cover the best application strategy to use when going about applying for your first entry-level developer role. So we've built your resume, we've built your LinkedIn, we've built your portfolio website, we've built your GitHub. Now the final stage of the whole process is actually going out, figuring out how to get that application material in front of the right people and figuring out the best companies to actually apply to. And that's exactly what I'm going to teach you in this module. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to break down this 3-step application strategy that I've come up with that is literally the best way to get hired as a junior developer. And how this is going to work is I'm going to start by briefly walking you through each step, show you how they all sort of line up and give you a high level overview of what to expect and the thought process behind the strategy. And then once you kind of have a basic idea of the 3 steps, what we will then do is dive a lot deeper into the thought process behind the 3 steps. We'll go through some demos and examples on how to actually carry out these steps so that by the end of this module, there's no sort of questions floating around in your head and you're fully equipped with everything that you need to know. So essentially, instead of just applying at easy applies on LinkedIn and Indeed, what we are going to do instead, we're going to start by building a list of 30 to 40 to 50 companies who are most likely to hire for junior developers. And as you can see here, I have a few companies written down who are most likely to hire junior developers. And as we go through this module, I'll break down why I have chosen these particular kinds of companies. And then once you've built your list of 30 or 40 or 50 companies, what we will then do is basically just find the decision makers at those companies. So that's going to be senior software engineers, software engineering managers, anyone who has to do with the tech hiring process. And then I'm actually going to show you how to find their contact information, so their emails, their phone numbers, their LinkedIns, and show you how to get in touch with them, which is the 3rd step. So I'm going to show you how to actually apply for a role at these companies by messaging these decision makers in a way that doesn't come across as desperate, in a way that also comes across as super organic. And obviously I'll also teach you how to maximize your response rate and make sure that you have the highest chances of getting hired. So that's the basic overview of what these 3 steps are going to look like. What I'm going to do now is actually dive into the details of the 3 steps, dive into examples, demos, explain the thought process behind everything, and yeah, we'll take it from there. So I guess I'll begin by diving into the first step here, which is to build your list. So essentially how this first step is going to work is you're going to build a list of, again, around 30 to 40 companies who, 1, have hired junior developers or interns previously that are based in your city. For example, if you are based in London, you're going to look for companies who have hired junior developers before that are based in London. And then the second kind of company we are going to build a list of is going to be digital agencies that are based in your city. So again, obviously, if you are based in London, you're going to look for digital agencies that are based in London. Now, the reason why we are building a list of these 2 particular kinds of companies is because they are the companies that are most likely and have the highest chances to hire for junior or intern developers. It's honestly just common sense. If someone were to ask you, okay, what company do you think is most likely to hire for junior developers or interns? You're going to say, well, the company that has done it in the past, right? Because if a company has hired for interns and juniors in the past, they are most likely going to do it again at some point in the future. So that's why we want to get in touch with those companies, build relationships with decision makers at those companies, so that when they do eventually hire for a junior or intern again, you're the first person that they think of. And now why digital agencies are also most likely to hire for juniors and interns is because of the nature of their business. So what you need to understand is digital agencies run at extremely low profit margins. So in order to save on expenses, save on costs, instead of hiring for a senior developer, which would, for example, be 160K per year or 200K per year, instead, what they will do is hire a cheaper, more junior developer for, let's say, 80K per year. And then they will then train that junior developer up to a senior level. And that basically allows them to get the same amount of work output for basically half the cost. And I know this seems super unethical and it seems like the agency is taking advantage of you. But if you think about it, it actually works perfectly in your favor and it's a win-win for both parties. The digital agency gets to save on costs and you also get to get your foot in the door. You're learning a ton because, you know, the company is trying to train you up to be the same productivity as a senior developer. And you're also earning a pretty decent salary. 80K per year is not bad at all. It's actually really good, especially when you're working remote. And the other reason why we actually want to apply to digital agencies, because agencies work with a ton of different clients. It means that you're going to get exposure to a ton of different projects and new technologies. So one day you could be working on an AI project. The next you could be working on a VR project, and then an AR project, and then a crypto project, Web3 project. And exposure to all of these different new technologies is going to allow you to build your skill set way more quickly than you would at any other kind of company. So that is the kind of thought process behind why we are picking these two kinds of companies to obviously build a list and apply for. Now the question is, where the hell do we find these companies? So what I actually want to do now is give you a quick demo, basically just giving you 3 examples of how to, 1, find companies that have hired for junior developers or interns that are based in your city. I'll show you how to do that. And then I'll also give you 3 examples on how to find digital agencies that are based in your city. And that should give you everything you need to build a list of these companies on your own. So to start us off, I'll start with this one here. And in order to build a list of companies that have hired junior developers in the past, here is what we are going to do. So in order to find this first kind of company here, what I want you to do is go to LinkedIn. And when you're on LinkedIn, what you're going to do is go to the search tab. And what you want to search is the specific kind of developer role that you are looking to land, and then your location. So let's say I was someone who was looking for a front-end developer job and I was based in London. What I would do is I'd type in front-end developer London. And once you've made this search, what you want to do is click on the people tab, and then you want to go to the location tab and filter by your city. Now, once we've done this, what we want to do is basically just go through every single one of these developers here. And we don't want to look at the company that they are working at currently, but we want to look for the company that gave them their first junior developer or intern role. For example, let's say we go into Mix right here. If we scroll down, we can see that he's currently working as a front-end developer at Global. We don't care. We want to look for the company that gave him his first front-end developer role, and it looks like the first company that gave him a shot was this company right here. So this dude was a violin instructor, studied violin, learned to code on his own, and this company right here was the company that brought him on and gave him a shot. So if this company has a history of hiring career changers, they have done it in the past, they've done it with this person here. Chances are they have done this for dozens of other people, and they are probably going to continue doing this in the future. So what we want to do is we want to take the name of this company. So Iris Audio Technologies, let's copy this. And what you want to do is create a separate Google Doc, and you can call this something like company list. And in this Google Doc, what you want to do is you want to note down the name of every single company that you come across that is giving people their first opportunity in tech as career changers. Again, Iris Technologies took a chance on this violin instructor. So no matter what career you're coming from, chances are if you're good enough, they'll probably take a chance on you too. So again, you want to write the name of this company down, and obviously later in the module I'll show you how to get the contact information of the decision makers there and apply and maximize your chances of actually getting a shot. So that's one example of a company that we would write down. Now let me give you a couple more examples to really drive this point home. All right, so let's say we click now into Alessandro. We scroll down, we can see that right now he is a front-end engineer at Trotter. Again, we do not care. Let's look at the company that gave him his first shot in the industry, and it looks like that was Oreo Studio. So that shows us that this company right here is willing to bring on front-end developers who don't have any previous experience. Again, they did it for him. They've probably done it for dozens of other people. So we want to note this company down. We want to get in touch with them. So let's click into them. Let us copy the name and let's paste this into our Google Doc. And now let me give you just one more example to really drive this point home. All right, let's click into Atanas. I don't know if I'm butchering that name. And let's quickly have a scroll through. Okay, beautiful. This is a perfect example of a kind of company we would write down. So we can see that this dude was an accountant for 5 years. And then he did a coding bootcamp for 6 months. No formal degree or anything like that. And the company that gave him his first shot in the industry as an intern developer was Pharma Spectra. So I know I keep saying this again and again, but if a company took a chance on him without any formal degree, coming from a coding bootcamp and an accounting background, they've probably done it for dozens of other people and are going to do it in the future. So we want to cash in on that. So let's click into this company and let's note it down on our list. And honestly, I think that's enough examples. You should sort of get the idea at this point. You sort of just click into people's profiles. You look for the company that gave them their first junior or intern developer role. Bonus points if that person is a career changer without a computer science background. And then you basically just do that until you have like 30 or 40 companies. And again, I did 3 companies in like 2 minutes. So honestly, it shouldn't take you that long to build your list. Now, for the second kind of company we want to build a list of or include in our list, digital agencies that are based in your city. How you are going to find these companies is very, very simple and straightforward. You are literally just going to go to Google and search for digital agencies in your city. So again, let's assume we're based in London. We're going to search for digital agencies based in London. We go ahead, we hit search, and you can see that Google is going to serve us up dozens and dozens and dozens of companies that we can reach out to. So let's go ahead and just note a couple of these down. Let's just go to the first page here. Let's note this company down on our list. Let's note this company down. And then finally, we'll note this company down. Okay, that is more than enough. You should get the point. Very simple, very straightforward. Just go to Google Maps, digital agencies in your city, and then you can just note down as many as you want. Now, once you had followed both of those strategies to build a list of 30 to 40 to 50 companies that fit into this category, now what we are going to do is then find the key decision makers at those companies. So once you've built a solid list, what you want to do is research each company on your list using LinkedIn, and you want to note down the names of anyone who looks like they are involved in the hiring process. So depending on the size of the company, this could be CEOs, CTOs, tech leads, senior software engineers, software engineering managers. Ideally, you want to stick to the more technical managerial roles like the ones I've listed here. But if you can only find HR roles, so that's stuff like a recruiter or a hiring manager, you can note them down as a last resort. And the reason we do them as a last resort is because they're not engineers themselves. They're not really technical. So that's not really the people you want to speak with. So to reiterate, for each company, you basically just want to find 2 to 3 people that fit ideally into this bracket, if not HR, recruiters, hiring managers as a last resort. And then once you note down 3 names, 3 people at each company, we then want to find their contact details. So this is going to be their LinkedIn profiles, their company emails, their phone numbers. And don't worry, I'm going to show you how to do all of that right now. Let's dive into our company list and let me break down how we can actually go about this whole second stage here. So the first part of this second step here is obviously researching each company and finding 2 to 3 key decision makers. And the second part of that is finding the contact information of the people or the decision makers that you've noted down for each company. So we'll start with the first part of that, which is actually finding the decision makers for each company in the first place. And I'll just give you a couple examples so you get an idea of how to do it on your own. Let's head over to our company list and let's start with Iris Audio Technologies. Let's find 2 to 3 decision makers at this company that we think could be most likely to to determine the hiring process when it comes to developers and software engineers. So how we're going to do this is we're going to go to LinkedIn. We're going to search for Iris Audio Technologies. We're going to click into the company and we're going to head to the People tab. And in the People tab, like I explained, we're going to look for anyone who looks like they have some sort of say in the hiring process when it comes to developers at this company. So immediately, the first one that really stands out to me is the VP of Engineering. And you can see immediately when we click on her profile, she's an experienced software engineer and technical lead, which is the exact kind of role that has significant sway on the hiring process, again, for developers. So we're going to take her name and we are going to note it down, and we'll do it in a smaller font just to keep things more organized. We'll paste her name down, and then that's our first decision maker. Now we'll head back to their LinkedIn page, and the next person who I'm going to note down is going to be the CEO and founder of the company. So because this company is a little bit smaller, 11 to 50 employees, the CEO is still going to have a lot of sway in the hiring process when it comes to developers and all that stuff. So what we can do is we can also note his name down. So we'll paste that in, and then let's look for one more decision maker if we can find it. All right, let's take Pierre. So Pierre, senior audio software engineer, audio research engineer. Not particularly ideal, but just for the sake of this video, we will note his name down so you can get an idea of just, how the process works. All right, and that's our 3 decision makers noted down for this first company. Now I'll give you one more example of this just to really drive the point home and make it really clear how to do this with this second company right here. So we'll head to LinkedIn and we will search for Team Oreo. Let's get rid of all of these filters. Let's look for companies. Okay, beautiful. We found the company right here. So we're going to do the same thing. We're going to head to the People tab. We are going to scroll down and we're going to look for any decision makers that we can find. So what you're going to find is some of these companies are going to be what we call dead leads, in the sense that a lot of these companies outsource work to cheaper countries. And you can sort of just tell by looking through their LinkedIn profile, yeah, this guy's based out in Bangladesh. So you can kind of just tell by looking through the employees at the company whether the company outsources a lot of their work or whether they like to hire locally within the city. And obviously we want to look for companies that hire locally within the country. So we consider this again a dead lead. We can get rid of this company from our list. And then let's try this one more time with Pharma Spectra. So let's search for it. Let's open it up. All right, and this company looks a little bit too big for my liking. Okay, yeah, so it looks like this company has been acquired. So when the person who we found this company off of got hired, the company was owned by different people and now it's owned by a much bigger company. So we'll take this company off of our list and we'll try our luck with the digital agencies. So in order to find the digital agencies LinkedIn, the easiest way to do that isn't to actually search for it. As you can see, I searched for it and nothing came up. What we're going to do instead is we're going to click into their website, and if we scroll to the very bottom of the contact info, they almost always have a LinkedIn that we can then obviously take a look at. So if we head to the People tab, we have a scroll through. We can have a look for any technical managerial roles. Okay, and this is also a dead lead. So this is basically just going to be a lot of work filtering through companies that don't hire locally. So we can basically just remove that company from our list. We'll try our luck with this next one. So if we go back, website, scroll down, open them up on LinkedIn, head to the People tab. Okay, nice. So we have the co-founder and director at Make Agency. So he's responsible for the technology side of things, I suppose, based off of his LinkedIn title. So what we'll do is we'll take his name, we will note it down, and we'll look for 1 or 2 more decision makers. Okay, beautiful. Head of web. So this is the person that is, it looks like, responsible for the web development side of things when it comes to this agency. So what we are going to do, so we're going to note her name down here. And I feel like that's more than enough examples for you to get the idea of how to find these decision makers. Again, it's a little bit of a tedious process, but I promise you it doesn't take that long. I've literally been sat here for like 5 minutes. It'll probably just take you 1, 2, maybe 3 hours to build a really solid list of companies and decision makers you can get in contact with. But now you sort of get the idea of how to actually find the decision makers. What I want to walk through now is how we can actually get in touch with these decision makers. So what I'm going to show you how to do now is how to find their LinkedIn profile. I mean, that's already pretty obvious, but I'll also show you how to find their company email and how to find the company number. So we'll start with the LinkedIn. I mean, if this wasn't obvious enough, for each person or each decision maker, we just want to note down their LinkedIn profile next to where we have their information. So let's just to make this video as quick as possible and not repeat ourselves, just note down these 3, and then obviously we would do it for these 2 people as well and all the other decision makers on our list. But just for time's sake, you get the idea. And to find the company email of each of these decision makers, what we are going to do is we're going to go to this website called hunter.io. And once you're logged into this website, what you then want to do is head to the Finder tab. And what this is going to allow you to do is take the website of any company, and this application is going to then find all of the company emails of all the employees at that company and list them out for you. So for example, again, we're starting with Iris Audio Technologies. So if we open up that company and we head to their website, and just to make sure that's the correct website, we'll search it up on Google. Okay, yeah, so it looks like this is the domain that they use for their website. So we're going to copy this website link, we're going to paste it into hunter.io, and then what we can then do is just click on this, and now we have all of the company emails of the employees at this company. And as you can see here, we have 2 of the 3 decision makers that we have on our list. So we have Bryony and we have Jacoby, and then we hit reveal, and then we can literally just copy these emails, paste them right here, and then we can do the same with Jacoby, paste them right here, and then Pierre. Let's search for Pierre. So you can actually use this search bar here to search for particular kind of people at the company. And when we search for Pierre, it's telling us that we need to, put in the full name. So we'll go and we'll type in his full name instead, and bang, we have Pierre's email as well. So we can just copy this. All right, so now we have all of their LinkedIn profiles, their company emails. Now the last thing we need is their phone numbers. So what you can do in order to get their phone numbers is 2 things. You can either send them a dummy email. So what you want to do is you want to create a spam email account, or you can just create an email account that doesn't have your name or anything at all and send them a quick test email. And sometimes what you'll find is they have an automated response. So these company emails a lot of the times will have an automated response that the employee set up that includes their personal phone number. So if you follow that strategy, you send them a quick test email, for example, to Jacoby at iris.audio, you may get a bounce back email that includes their phone number, and then you can note that down here. And since that's going to be their personal phone number, that is going to have the highest hit rate or the highest response rate. Or the easier method, which is not going to be as effective or get as high as a response rate, is going to be to basically just search the company up on Google. And a lot of the times they will literally include their phone number right here. So we can just copy that and add that in to each of the decision makers. Or more than likely, if the phone number isn't included on Google, it more than likely will be included on the company website. So you can just head to the Contact Us tab, scroll down to the bottom, and a lot of the times they'll have the number somewhere in the footer. So that's pretty much how you find the contact information of the decision makers. So now you have pretty much everything you need to carry out the first 2 steps of the process. You know how to build your list of companies, you know how to find the decision makers at those companies, and you also know how to find their emails and their contact information. Now the last part is figuring out how we actually use all of this information to make our move, apply to the company, and obviously get hired. So essentially what you want to do now is you want to message and reach out to, again, 2 to 3 decision makers at each company, which you have noted down, making sure to follow these key rules. You want to start by introducing yourself via email, phone call to the company, or even going into the company in person, which I think is the most effective strategy, or LinkedIn. And you don't have to limit yourself to one of these approaches. You can send the company an email, you can also give a phone call to the company, you can also go in person, and you can also send them a LinkedIn message all at once. But regardless of the method of approach that you choose, whether it's email, phone call, or in person, or LinkedIn message, the general format of your approach that you want to follow is, again, you want to start by introducing yourself and what you do. So for example, hey, I'm Ayman. I am a front-end developer with XYZ years of experience building web applications. And then you want to tell them what you like about their company. That's the next thing you want to do. And in order to get that unique thing that you quote unquote like about their company, literally just check their portfolio, check their company websites, pick something out, and then give them a unique compliment based off of what you saw. But you want to be very careful with this. You don't want to seem like you just went through the website and picked the first thing that you saw. You actually want to very carefully read it and pick something out that you genuinely like. For example, if we look at Iris Audio, we can see that their whole thing is bridging the gap between AI and audio technologies. So what my unique compliment would be is, again, I would start by introducing myself. Hey, my name is Ayman. I'm a front-end developer with X, Y, and Z years of of experience building web applications and this, that, and the third. And then after the compliment, I would say something like, I was researching local tech companies in my area and came across you guys and what you do. And I was honestly super impressed by what you guys are working on, bridging the gap between AI and audio technologies. It's something I've never seen before, and I found it super impressive and super unique. And then after you've introduced yourself and you've given the company a unique compliment, you don't then want to be like, are you guys hiring? Please hire me. Please give me a referral, begging for a job. No, you don't want to do any of that. You then want to tell them that you would just like to introduce yourself over a quick in-person coffee or virtual coffee so that you can learn how to upskill yourself so that you can best position yourself for when they are eventually hiring one day. It's very important that you follow this structure here. And the reason we do this is this doesn't come across as salesy or desperate and that you're just reaching out to the company for a job. No, it shows them that, hey, this guy's just genuinely interested in learning more about the company. He's not really too stressed about us hiring him now. He just wants to learn more about the company and how he can upskill himself and what we're working on. And the chances of a company bringing you in for this in-person coffee or hopping on a virtual coffee chat with you is going to be 10 times more likely than if you had just begged for a job. Now, the good thing about these meetings, these virtual coffees, these in-person coffees, is they are basically going to just emulate a job interview. You guys are going to build a relationship. You guys are going to talk about what the company does, what they're working on, what they look for in the engineers that they hire. And then they're going to ask you about your experiences, your projects, what you've worked on, your past experiences, which is basically just a job interview. That's exactly what you talk about in a job interview. I mean, you can even ask for the technical test that they usually give out during job interviews at the end of this meeting, and they will be more than happy to give it to you. All you need to say is, I was wondering if I could get the technical test that you guys usually give to software engineers that you are hiring. Not because I want a job, but because I just want to learn how I can best upskill myself and what I need to work on so that I can best position myself so that when you are eventually hiring one day, I'm the first person that you think of. And that is the approach that we are going to take. So in terms of reaching out, that is pretty much it in a nutshell. You just want to send a script like this, whether that's over email, whether that's in person, whether that's over the phone, whether that's on LinkedIn, where you follow the general format that I just outlined, where you're again introducing yourself and what you do and who you are, giving the company a unique compliment, which again you can find with just 5 seconds, 10 seconds of scrolling on their website. And then you ask to meet for a virtual coffee or an in-person coffee to learn more about the company and how you can upskill yourself so that when they are hiring, you are the first person that they think of. And then at the end, you obviously want to attach any portfolio websites, LinkedIn's, GitHub's, resumes, anything like that. So this is a script that I give to all of my students. If you want to screenshot this, you can just go ahead and do that. And yeah, you basically just want to reach out or send a message like that to 1, 2, even 3 people at the company. You want to start by sending a message to the people who are more technical managerial roles. So the CTOs, the VPs of engineering, all that stuff. And then if you don't hear back from them, that's when you can start messaging the other people that you have on your list that may not be as qualified, which could be like recruiters, hiring managers, all that stuff. Now, again, the key with this strategy and that I really want to drive home is that you never ask if they are hiring, because for one, this comes across as begging and desperate, and absolutely every company gets messages like this every single day. Even me, as someone who doesn't run a software company, I somehow get messages from people every single day begging for a job. Can you see how that's not going to make you stand out at all? You're just going to fall into the crowd of hundreds of people, if not thousands, who are asking and begging these companies for a job. And even if you see that the company is hiring and they have a job on LinkedIn for a developer role, you want to act as though you don't know, and that it's just a coincidence that you somehow message the company showing genuine interest. You didn't even know that they were hiring, and now they have the opportunity to hire someone who is authentically interested in the company. So that's pretty much the entire 3-step strategy. Very, very simple and straightforward. You want to be very persistent in order to maximize your chances of landing these virtual coffees and getting responses. You want to follow up with people who don't respond to you every single week, again and again and again and again. And you also want to make sure to attach your personal website, your resume, and your portfolio to every single message. And this is a strategy that isn't going to get you hired overnight. I'm not going to lie to you, this is going to be a bit of a process. But once you start to build those relationships over the next 1-2 months, you have those virtual coffee chats, you meet for coffee in person, eventually a role is going to open up at one of these companies. And you are going to be the first person that snaps up that role, because if you think about it, the company has already interviewed you. They've brought you in for a coffee. They know about your experience. They know about what you've worked on in the past. I mean, hell, you've probably even completed the technical test that they give out during interviews, so they know that you are already skilled enough. So So before they even post a job on LinkedIn or anything like that, bang, they're going to reach out to you. They're going to offer you the job. And that is how you get hired in this harsh tech job market without competing with the saturated job postings on LinkedIn. So I hope this module taught you a lot. I hope it opened your eyes to how deep the rabbit hole really goes in terms of landing that first entry-level developer job. And if you have any questions about this module, let me know in the comments below. I know there was a lot to take in here, but I promise you, if you focus and lock in on this application strategy, you're going to see absolutely crazy results over the next 1 to even 3 months.
All right, that is all for the full beginner junior developer course. I hope you guys enjoyed. Again, I know this video was very long, but I hope you got a ton of value from it. I put a ton of time and effort into planning and building this out. And of course, while there was a ton of information that you learned in this video, this is just a fraction of what you need to know to actually become a successful junior developer in 2026. So if you want more insights just like this, and you want my personal help and my personal guidance actually helping you transition into the tech industry as a career changer, apply to join my one-on-one coding bootcamp with the first link in the description. It's where I help dozens of beginners and career changers like yourself on a daily basis transition into high-paying coding jobs at companies like Microsoft, like Roblox. So if that sounds interesting to you, the first link in the description will have all of the details. But other than that, make sure to hit like, subscribe, and comment down below letting me know your thoughts on today's video. And if you want another full course on how to learn to code and transition into a high-paying coding job, watch the video that's about to pop up on the screen now. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.